Anya Epstein claims to be Epstein's niece and Shia LaBeouf's twin sisters.
Shia LaBeouf is related to Epstein?
Yeah, a lot of these people are related. Her claim sounded wild at first, right? But she was the first one I ever heard mention that they worship Baal. And that Baal account that Jeffrey had that is not a type. The debunking is like, oh, the computer had a glitch that makes it spell
BAA1.
It's Baal. And also, first of all, nobody's going to name their bank account Bank. So f you with that explanation. Secondly, they do worship Baal. Those are those temples are for, those Phoenician temples. This shit goes back a long way. You got to sacrifice precious things to you.
Oh, hey, man. Oh, you like my suit? I got almost 300,000 miles on this one. To be honest, though, it's not half as many miles as I have on my Chacos. Got to put them in four-wheel drive. Woo! Another day of sun. What should we do today? Should we head up to the mountains and go mountain biking, fishing, yakking? Should I wear my North Face jacket or my Patagonia jacket? Decisions. You know what they say? You don't take a hike. The hike takes you. Oh, I need some granola. Woo! God, move it, California. Idiots. What's that? Oh, this? Well, no, I'm not a native, but my kids are. One of them. I only drink local craft beer. I have this rule, if I can't ride my bike to where it was brewed, I don't drink it. Oh, shit.
All right, there you go.
Do you think you could add like some pine trees and some mountains around it?
Oh yeah, for sure. How long you lived here?
2 weeks. I just love Colorado so much.
If someone slams their car door into your car, there's an unethical trick you can use to get revenge. First, take a photo of their license plate. Then go online and order a life-size replica of that exact plate. Once it arrives in your mailbox, grab the fake plate, walk to your car, and tape it over your real license plate. Put on a hat so cameras can't see your face. Then find a speed camera and drive past it as fast as possible. Repeat this several times until it adds up to thousands of dollars in fines. And every ticket will be mailed to the guy who dented your car.
That's all I needed. That's all I needed for him to do that. And it became personal with me.
What are you thinking about?
So during the Las Vegas shooting, Stephen Paddock supposedly expended over 3,000 rounds of ammunition over the course of 10 minutes from 27 AR-15s, each equipped with bump stocks. But that would have required him to drop a gun for another after each 30-round mag was empty and then reload each of the 27 ARs at least 4 times over. That's even despite the fact videos from survivors show a non-stop stream of bullets at a fire rate much higher than that of a bump stock AR-15 and resembling more of a fire rate similar to that of an M240 light machine gun. And investigative photos of Paddock's hotel room where he shot from only show 50 spent shells. And what about once when the FBI took over the investigation, Paddock's house somehow burnt down and destroyed all the evidence, and years later America's mass shooting is still ruled to have no motive. And even after Paddock's brother went on air claiming nothing made sense, the following day he was arrested for possessing several hundred terabytes of child porn on a 20-year-old computer running on Windows 95. It all doesn't make any sense. And this is according to the FBI?
Nothing. Nothing.
Holy shit, Frankie, I think I hit the fucking thing.
What the fuck? You see that?
Damn, that shit stinks in Jesus' name.
Oh my goodness.
Lord help us.
Whew.
Lord have mercy. What the fuck is
dead?
that smell?
It's terrible.
Somebody
I don't think that's...
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah. You're what's called a taxpayer. And I am the government.
Okay.
May I have some tax money, please?
Here you are.
This is the price you pay for a civilized society. This is an NGO.
Okay.
A non-government organization. And this is an American small business.
Okay.
Okay, now out of that $20 you give to me, $10 I need to keep because, you know, got to keep the lights on.
Sure.
And $10 goes to the NGO.
All right.
This one's called Rochambeau for World Peace.
All right.
You see that small business owner right there?
Yes.
I'm going to need you to mostly peacefully kick him in the balls.
What, you guys serious?
You want that money?
Yeah.
Get a kicking.
All right.
That money from him. Excellent. Thank you for your taxes. Your contributions are well noted. May I?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's called a kickback. If the government did that, that would be unethical. Maybe even illegal.
Why?
But a non-government organization
Why?
can kick as many Americans in the nuts as they want. And the best part is, the Americans will pay for it. I'm gonna need some more money, please.
I don't have more money.
Oh, he doesn't have more money. This is called an audit.
What? No. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God.
Oh, that looks painful. That's okay. He's gonna have to pick himself up by the bootstraps. This is how your government and non-government organizations make the world a better place. I'm gonna need that money in the form of a donation. Thank you very much. Everybody's happy.
Heard it shatter.
I'm proud of you, you know that. I hope you do.
Oh God, he's gonna break all the stuff. I don't think so. Hey, hon. What is this?
It's nothing. It's nothing. Please don't tell anyone.
Of course, nobody can ever know about this.
Okay, good. Besides you and me, no one else knows.
He's seen too much.
We can live in this place where it's 75 and sunny all year round and has an oceanfront beach view. Yuck! Why would we live there? That sucks. How about this place? Torturously cold winters, brutally hot summers. I like the sounds of that. Unlimited supply of mosquitoes that you'll despise, and there's nothing to do other than drink. This is it. That's it. Honey, pack up the wagon. We're moving to the Midwest. And if our descendants don't like it, too bad. Our DNA is too stubborn to leave. Should be generations of suffering. I can't wait.
It's all just a cat and mouse game. People are like, we'll elect the Democrats next time. It's like, but it's all the same shit has been happening forever. They haven't been helping anybody forever. They're letting fucking politicians slurp on kids. All of our fucking money goes to Israel and they're using it to fucking genocide people. It's like everybody is scared out of their wits right now. It's like our religious leaders are afraid to speak out. And it's like it's a time where it's like Satan is amongst us and our religious leaders are fucking talking about bullshit at the poll. It's just like, what is going, I don't know, man. What do you think is going to happen? You think we're going to be okay?
I hope so. Of course. I don't know.
Do you think about it?
I'm confused. I can't believe we went to this war. When we started bombing Iran, I was like, this can't be true.
And what about Lebanon now?
I know. Israel's invaded Lebanon. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, just fucking stop. Like, what do you need?
Well, they're trying to, supposedly, they're trying to stop the terrorists.
Yeah, that's crazy, though, if you're the fucking terrorist. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to stop them, fucking stand in front of the fucking mirror and start there.
Woo! Why you doing me, Mo?
Oh, you little shit.
What the fish you doing?
Oh, fuck! Not I'm eating fucking chicken, motherfucker! You know that bath mat in your...
Bang, bang, smash!
Ah,
fucking smash.
Jesus Christ, you son of a bitch, the bastard, the blood of the bitch!
Mabuting mana pusekan ni Metro Madis Panda.
Oh, God. Lord have mercy. You gotta quit that.
Linda.
Shut falling! Fuck off, asshole! Jesus Christ.
Right, apparently this is impossible for a Scottish person, so let's give it a bash, man. If ever make me out, I guarantee I can do it, right? 3, 2, 1. January, mate. My birthday's in January. January. I'm not saying that, mate. December. Mate, this thing's rigged. January. I'm not saying fucking June. January. How do you say January? January. February. March. April. Is my fucking speaker broke? April. May. That's what in it, man. June. Fuck off, man. June. January. July. August. September. So fucking doing it, man. October. November. December. These fucking Mondays are steaming up. December, man! December! This thing's gonna cut out. December! Fuck!
Welcome to The Independent Review, a weekly podcast where we bring you the latest from the world of independent journalism.
Today's gonna be the gonna throw back you. By now you should somehow realize what I gotta do. I believe everybody feels the way I do about you now.
Back these hours on the street as a fire in your heart is out. I'm sure you had it all before, but never really had a doubt. I don't believe what anybody feels the way I do about you now.
Welcome to the Independent Review, live on AM Wake Up on Odyssey, Rumble, Substack, and the Indie News Network on Twitter. Let's jump into our first clip with Dave DeCamp of antiwarnews.com.
Hey, this is Dave DeCamp from antiwar.com, and welcome to Anti-War News. It's about 9:30 on Thursday night here in Virginia. I got back from my short trip to D.C. last night where I attended the Pierre Sprey Journalism Awards, and it was a great event. And I'll talk a little bit more about it at the end here, but just first I want to say congratulations to the winners, who included Kelly Vlahos, who is the editor-in-chief of Responsible Statecraft at the Quincy Institute, and she's a friend of ours at antiwar.com. She was a writer for antiwar.com for some time, and she was with the American Conservative, and she just has always done great work, so it was really good to see her get recognized. And also Ryan Grimm of Drop Site News, which I think they've really provided an invaluable resource since they started, I guess, relatively recently. And Seth Harp was the top winner, who published the book, The Fort Bragg Cartel. And he's another, he's been a reporter for a long time, and I really have always liked his work. So congratulations to them. And of course, as I was walking to my car, I had my phone out and I was watching Trump. I was listening to Trump's address that he gave, which was essentially, it was a 10-minute spiel, kind of repeating all of the same things that he has said in his Truth Social posts, in his remarks to reporters at press conferences and things. There wasn't really anything new there. And of course, the concern was that he was going to come out and announce an invasion was going to happen or something, but that didn't happen. And that's not what he's done over this past year in this term. It's not like he comes out and says, we're going to do this. We're going to attack Venezuela. Israel's going to bomb Iran, and then we're going to bomb them too. It just happens. And then he just tries to explain himself after the fact. But the really concerning thing in there is that he also didn't, declare victory. He was saying some similar things about the Strait of Hormuz, kind of like it's other countries' problem, which does signal maybe there's some kind of off-ramp there. But he also said, they're going to ramp up and threaten to bomb them into the Stone Age if there's no diplomatic deal. And still, there's no evidence that negotiations are actually happening. We're going to get into some of this in the stories tonight. And he also said that the war is going to last about at least another 2 or 3 weeks. I have the quote in one of the stories you'll see. So overall, again, it was really nothing new, but still very concerning. It tells me that we're still on this march toward escalation. I don't see him getting out of this, unfortunately. So let's get into the news here. The first story at the top of antiwar.com today, Trump to unveil a $1.5 trillion military budget. So this has kind of gone unnoticed. President Trump is expected to unveil his request for a $1.5 trillion military budget for the 2027 fiscal year on Friday. This was reported by Reuters, and this marks a 50% increase from this year's already massive budget. The 2026 military budget marked the first to officially exceed $1 trillion. And this was achieved by Congress passing a 2026 National Defense Authorization Act worth about $900 billion. And there was a supplemental military spending bill packed into the big bill that Trump pushed last year worth about $150 billion. So combining that, you get over $1 trillion. And the White House is expected to go with a similar strategy. They're going to outline a $1.5 trillion, just massive, massive budget. And then the NDAA is probably going to be around somewhere between $900 billion and $1 trillion. And then they're going to try to get some kind of other spending bill for $400 to $600 billion. I mean, just out of thin air, this money appears to throw into these black holes of these modern weapons that they're trying to build. And Republican leadership has already started working on the supplemental. So I do believe that's the path that they're going to take. It's not going to be a $1.5 trillion NDAA. The Trump administration is also expected to soon ask Congress for $200 billion for the Iran war. And that is mainly, as I understand it, we don't really know the details, going to go toward replenishing the weapons that the U.S. has used in the war. The U.S. and its allies. I suspect there's going to be some military aid in there for Israel. I asked the Pentagon that, but they just referred me to some comments that Hegseth made about the $200 billion. So it's unclear. I mean, are they going to go for $1.5 trillion budget plus this $200 billion? I don't know. I guess that will become clear in the coming weeks and months as this budget stuff happens. But this Reuters report said that some of the requests include the Golden Dome, Trump's big missile defense shield that he wants for the entire United States, which is just going to be a total boondoggle. And it's going to likely spark a new arms race. We see this combined with the New START being finished, no nuclear arms control between the U.S. and Russia. Very concerning stuff. Also, it's also saying that some of this money is going to go toward replenishing the weapons in the Middle East. So I think it's possible that the supplemental for Iran might get rolled into this. But it's just so much money. And there was a report from Bloomberg that said the White House's budget plan will frame the Republicans' midterm election message around a massive military buildup, partially paid for by cuts to domestic agencies. So apparently, according to this report, the Trump administration is going to say, make this their rallying cry for the elections is a major military buildup, increased spending, a raging war in the Middle East. Like, they think that's going to be a good thing to run on in 2026. What concerns me is, I was thinking more about this earlier. We do appear to be on the brink of ground operations. We have Marines airborne in the region, and everything's kind of pointing in that direction. I mean, maybe part of their strategy is to launch these ground ops and get Marines killed and try to get a rally around the flag thing to happen. As sick as that may sound, I mean, considering all the other evil things that they've been doing, I really wouldn't put something like that past them. The beginning of Trump's term, he was suggesting that he wanted to make some cuts to the military budget, but then he pushed ahead with all these military interventions just all over the world, escalating and starting new ones. And then he requested the $1 trillion budget, so it's important to say, and that this is, for many years, total U.S. national security spending, to maintain the U.S. empire has cost well over $1 trillion for many years. When you factor in other things, other agencies, the interest on the debt, the national security spending that's accrued to the debt, and Veterans Affairs, things like that. And that's something Winslow Wheeler. So Winslow Wheeler is a defense analyst, kind of a legendary defense analyst in D.C., who's been very critical of all the overspending and everything. And he's put together a lot of good stuff on, okay, this is the NDAA, this is the request, but adding all these other factors, it really comes out to like 1.5 trillion, and that was when it was like around 800 billion, the NDAA. So if we're talking a 1.5 trillion budget, I mean, we're really probably getting close to 3 trillion here. So it's all just madness, and it's. I remember when I think it was around the Venezuela attack or before it, when Trump said he was going to go for a $1.5 trillion budget. Seems like he's just really embraced doubling down on this empire and everything. Though also saying that the U.S. it's not responsible for the Strait of Hormuz and everything. So again, that suggests maybe some kind of retreat, but we'll see. I don't know if that's really his plan, but he might be forced to retreat in some way in the future. All right. Anyway, the next one here, Pentagon is hiding U.S. losses under Trump in the Middle East. So this is a report from Nick Turse at The Intercept. So almost 750 U.S. troops have been wounded or killed in the Middle East since October 2023. An analysis by The Intercept is found, but the Pentagon won't acknowledge it. U.S. Central Command, which oversees military operations in the Middle East, appears to be engaged in what a defense official called a casualty cover-up, offering The Intercept lowball and outdated figures and failing to provide clarifications on military deaths and injuries. At least 15 U.S. troops were wounded Friday in an Iranian attack on a Saudi airbase that hosts American troops, according to 2 government officials who spoke with The Intercept. Hundreds of U.S. personnel have been killed or injured in the region since the U.S. launched a war on Iran just over a month ago. President Donald Trump, who wore a blue suit, red tie, and a ball cap to the dignified transfer of the first Americans killed in the war, said casualties were inevitable. He said, quote, "When you have conflicts like this, you always have death. I met parents, and they were unbelievable people. They were unbelievable people, but they all had one thing in common. They said to me one thing, every single one, finish the job, sir. Please finish the job," end quote. On Tuesday, Trump teased that he would wind down the war with Iran in as little as 2 weeks, despite not achieving many of his stated aims. But so one thing there, and it's important to say, Hegseth said something similar, that, and all the families he spoke to, they said, you got to keep going, do it for them. And there was one family member of a soldier who was killed who said, I didn't say that. But you see what they're doing here, and that, what I was saying before, like, are they trying to get Americans killed so then they can escalate? Because they're using these deaths as an excuse to go further and further, which is going to lead to more death, and then it's just kind of the never-ending escalation. So anyway, so he has the CENTCOM has sent outdated statements on casualty numbers, meanwhile resulting in undercounts, including a statement sent Monday from spokesman Captain Tim Hawkins, noting that since the start of Operation Epic Fury, at least 303 U.S. service members have been wounded. The comment was 3 days old and excluded at least 15 wounded in the Friday attack. CENTCOM also would not provide a count of troops who have died in the region since the start of the war. An intercept analysis puts the number at no less than 15. I believe the number that they've been putting out is 13. I know, but there was also one soldier who died of what they call the medical incident, so he hasn't been included in the count. So I mean, this is something I've suspected all along here, that they're not telling us the real numbers, that they're kind of trying to push back, revealing all of these casualties. And when it comes to the injuries, they never make announcements or anything when we see U.S. troops get injured in these attacks. The one in Saudi Arabia, according to the reporting, there's at least 5 were severely injured. But what does that mean? What kind of injuries? Are they at risk of dying? We don't know. All right, so the next one here, U.S. strikes tallest bridge in Iran, killing 8 people. So a U.S.-Israeli strike hit the B-1 bridge in Iran's Al-Borz province near the capital Tehran, an attack that came after President Trump threatened to bomb the country into the Stone Ages. The B-1 bridge is said to be one of the tallest in the Middle East, and photos show that it appeared to be severed in half following the attack. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump shared a video of the explosion on the bridge and threatened that more attacks were coming. He said, quote, "The biggest bridge in Iran comes tumbling down, never to be used again, much more to follow. It is time for Iran to make a deal before it's too late, and there is nothing left of what still could become a great country," end quote. So reveling in the destruction that he is unleashing on this country. I mean, how do you justify this? Just bombing a bridge, blowing up a bridge. And according to Iranian media, the bridge was under construction and wasn't actually in use when it was hit, and at least 8 civilians were killed and 95 were wounded. And the casualties were people gathered under the bridge or near the river for Sizda Beidar, or Nature Day, which is an Iranian holiday when people gather for picnics or other outdoor activities. People go out. And you could see in this picture here that there's a lot of people in the bottom left along the bank of the river here. So apparently, according to the media reports from Iran, that's who was killed in this strike, was civilians just out with their families for this holiday. And this is what the Iranian foreign minister said, Abbas Araghchi, quote, "Striking civilian structures, including unfinished bridges, will not compel Iranians to surrender. It only conveys the defeat and moral collapse of an enemy in disarray. Every bridge and building will be built back stronger. What will never recover, damage to America's standing," end quote. So the attack came the day after Trump delivered an address on the war, where he made the threat to bomb Iran into the Stone Ages and said the war would last at least another 2 to 3 weeks. This is just barbaric stuff here. So Trump said, quote, "We are going to hit them exactly hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong," end quote. And then, of course, Pete Hegseth affirmed this and wrote on X, "Back to the Stone Age." Just barbarity here, reveling in the death and destruction. And, there's a lot of stories. I think we have one from Al Jazeera or something in the lower part of the page about, this is a threat that U.S. officials have made before. But this is a little different. Everybody credits Curtis LeMay with being the first one, or one of the first U.S. officials to say, bomb them into the Stone Age. But it was actually in his book that he published, I believe, after he left the Air, he was the chief of the Air Force, I think right at the start of the Vietnam War. I might have my timeline mixed up. He retired and then he wrote this book, and he was saying what the U.S. should do in Vietnam. And he said, bomb them. We could bomb them to the Stone Age, give them ultimatums, and then if they don't listen to us, we'll bomb them to the Stone Age or whatever. And a few years later, he tried to deny that he said that's not exactly what he said. So it's very different than, the president in an address to the nation saying, we're going to bomb them into the Stone Age. And not that LeMay was involved in all the horrific strategic bombings in World War II, purposely burning civilians alive. Really horrific stuff. So I'm not trying to defend that type of war, but just there is something different happening here with Trump and Hegseth, the way that they are behaving and carrying themselves. It's really just kind of a new breed of evil. All
Next, we have this clip from the Indie News Network.
And then we have G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe. Okay, Joe Kent, who became the celebrity of the week because he miraculously stepped up, right? And he couldn't take it anymore. And he had to be the voice of reason to prove, to say that this is all wrong and we never had a stated objective. Everybody knew that. All right. But he's attending this Prayer for America thing he attended the other day with Mike Flynn and Candace Owens and Matt Walsh and Sister Carrie Prejean. Catholics for Catholics. They've created a celebrity. 7C's, friend of the show. Check out my 2 one-on-ones with him at innnewsletter.com. Everyone's new moral compass is aligning himself with Mike Flynn and Candace Owens, the gopher for the CIA and DIA, Israel and Russia, and the propagandist wife of the House of Lords, buddies with Scientology's John Mappin. Everyone involved with America's future wishes to see everyone in America faced with decline to the benefit of Israel and Russia. On top of that, what I claimed here is now Scott Horton, who I did a INN anti-war Palestine free Palestine stream with a couple of years ago, moderated by Misty. Scott Horton founded Anti-War. He had an interview with Joe Kent the day after he resigned, and he claims that the U.S. intentionally armed and relied on Al-Qaeda and ISIS in Syria just to serve Israel's geopolitical interests in Iran. They literally created the ISIS caliphate, which we've already known, right? And Reef and Colin covered that ISIS was a creation of the Israeli security. ISIS is Israeli Secret Intelligence Service, all right? But I took that and I said, okay, no such thing as a former operative. We've known for years that ISIS also stood for that. Joe Kent, by the way, for those who don't know, is also backed by Peter Thiel and aligned with Michael Flynn and NGO Intel. This all feels like a big show, like they just introduced and elevated another player. Joe Kent, by the way, ran for Congress twice and lost. He's about to run again. You think he's going to lose now? Probably not, would be my guess. Angelo Giuliano, who I started the Netanyahu segment with, chimes in that Joe Kent is no hero, just another clever move in the broken U.S. empire. And this is my speculation as well. A closer examination reveals something far less heroic. This is not a courageous break of a genuine dissident. It's a carefully timed tactical retreat from a visibly sinking project designed to preserve his political viability and personal brand for future opportunities while avoiding any real accountability for the years he spent inside the system. Totally agree with every single word of that. And I'll add to it. All right, because I do think that Peter Thiel has aspirations for this guy. That they see him as a potential VP candidate, maybe under Vance, maybe even president someday. Maybe elevate him to speaker or a senator, put him on some influential board. He is a CIA agent, again, no ex-CIA. He's a CIA agent, ex-Green Beret. He fits the profile very well. And don't forget that this guy chose to go work for Trump for 16 months, and until this whole Iran thing, he was on board with all of it. He was on board with the genocide. He was on board with funding Ukraine and destabilizing Russia. He was on board with all of it. And now he's coming out and screaming about Charlie Kirk. I feel like he is part of this whole Marjorie Taylor Greene, new right, America first, not Israel first part of the split within the Republican Party. Okay, finally, again, INN News just last week, did a 45-minute segment just about Joe Kent and whether he has ulterior motives or whether he actually did resign in protest, or both. It's possible that it's both.
Who are these people?
Real quick, this guy, Kyle Offray, is someone that I follow. He said there was absolute chaos at Atlanta airport. Highly recommend not traveling out of Atlanta. Now, this was Sunday until the TSA situation changes. TSA completely shut down. The lines were stretched for what felt like miles. A 6 to 7 hour wait time now, and Atlanta PD just took over. We stood there 4 hours thinking we were making progress, which we were, only to have the north checkpoint shut down and the entire line redirected to the back of the main terminal, which was also 4 hours. No communication, no structure, just thousands of people stuck, frustrated, and scrambling. If you're heading through ATL today or this week, plan accordingly, pack patience, and maybe say a quick prayer and get there a day early. So,
airport update for everybody. I just spent the last 3.5 hours of my Sunday there, and I got there plenty early in order to make my flight. I was in the north checkpoint, and I got there at about 3:30 for a 7:30-ish flight. And after spending 3 hours in the north checkpoint, they then shut the north checkpoint down because the workers left, and the Atlanta police stepped in and then were trying to escort all the people who just waited in line at the north checkpoint for 4 hours to the back of the line at the main checkpoint. Clear is closed, TSA pre-check is closed, and they also closed the south checkpoint at 5 o'clock. So you have about 10 or 12 hours of people that have been waiting, now consolidating into one single line at 7:30 at night on a Sunday. So I left and moved my flight till first thing tomorrow morning, probably going to go to the airport at 3 a.m. But that is the Atlanta airport update right now. Atlanta police has taken over. The workers have left, and it is a complete and total disaster. And I would not advise anybody travel out of Atlanta anytime soon. That's all.
What a mess. And then, of course, we're going to probably cover next week ICE taking over in 13 airports, or at least they started standing behind TSA agents. While the TSA agents are not being paid because there's a government shutdown, but the ICE agents are being paid because, well, fuck Trump. Okay, here's a video that's going to be a little bit hard to watch. Leaked video from inside an ICE detention center shows women trapped in desperate conditions, smuggled out by her husband. I can't imagine how that happened. Used panties, moldy food, broken shoes, clothes that don't fit because they're made for men, and a toxic mattress made of insulation. Oh my God! Gabriela Sousa came to the U.S. legally granted humanitarian parole from Venezuela and is married to a U.S. citizen husband. Her husband helped the women smuggle out this video they made, with testimonials from several women detained together in these inhumane conditions. This video was made secretly inside the Baker County ICE Detention Center in McLeany, Florida. Ready? Wait for our process. We are treated as criminals. We're mothers and our families. We're going to show some of the conditions which we've been living for months. The mouthwash brush used in broken panties. Shirts for men. The cloths. The uniform. Dirty in old stores. Uniforms that don't close. The pillows. The mattresses. We want freedom.
Hola, yo llevo en este país 45 años, vine en Mariel en el 80. En el último mes me han llevado a 13 diferentes centros de migración.
They take me to 13 different centers, sleeping on the floor without mattresses, sometimes without clothes.
Mucha gente sufriendo, nos están tratando bien mal.
We're being treated very badly. Sometimes they give us raw food. We even get it with mold. They scream at us, treat us like criminals.
Buenas noches. La comida es muy mala. Yo tengo casi 3 meses de estar aquí encerrada por parte de ICE. No me suelta. La corte la dan para 3 meses me dieron una corte. Yo creo que es una injusticia de que nos tengan aquí encerradas. ¿Cuáles son los derechos de nosotras?
Sometimes they get better treatments in shelters. You're right. It's just awful. They're doing. Fuck ICE. So that's another story from ICE detention. And then we have G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe. Okay, Joe Kent, who became the celebrity of the week because he miraculously stepped up, right? And he couldn't take it anymore. And he had to be the voice of reason to prove, to say that this is all wrong and we never had a stated objective. Everybody knew that. All right. But he's attending this Prayer for America thing he attended the other day with Mike Flynn and Candace Owens and Matt Walsh and Sister Carrie Prejean. Catholics for Catholics. They've created a celebrity. 7 C's, friend of the show. Check out my 2 one-on-ones with him at innnewsletter.com. Everyone's new moral compass is aligning himself with Mike Flynn and Candace Owens, the gopher for the CIA and DIA, Israel and Russia, and the propagandist wife of the House of Lords, buddies with Scientology's John Mappin. Everyone involved with America's future wishes to see everyone in America faced with decline to the benefit of Israel and Russia. On top of that, what I claimed here is now Scott Horton, who I did a INN anti-war free Palestine stream with a couple of years ago, moderated by Misty. Scott Horton founded anti-war. He had an interview with Joe Kent the day after he resigned, and he claims that the U.S. intentionally armed and relied on Al-Qaeda and ISIS in Syria just to serve Israel's geopolitical interests in Iran. They literally created the ISIS caliphate, which we've already known, right? And Reef and Colin covered that ISIS was a creation of the Israeli security. ISIS is Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. All right. But I took that and I said, okay, no such thing as a former operative. We've known for years that ISIS also stood for that. Joe Kent, by the way, for those who don't know, is also backed by Peter Thiel and aligned with Michael Flynn and NGO Intel. This all feels like a big show, like they just introduced and elevated another player. Joe Kent, by the way, ran for Congress twice and lost. He's about to run again. You think he's going to lose now? Probably not, would be my guess. Angelo Giuliano, who I started the Netanyahu segment with, chimes in that Joe Kent is no hero, just another clever move in the broken U.S. empire. And this is my speculation as well. A closer examination reveals something far less heroic. This is not a courageous break of a genuine dissident. It's a carefully timed tactical retreat from a visibly sinking project designed to preserve his political viability and personal brand for future opportunities while avoiding any real accountability for the years he spent inside the system. Totally agree with every single word of that. And I'll add to it. All right, because I do think that Peter Thiel has aspirations for this guy. That they see him as a potential VP candidate, maybe under Vance, maybe even president someday. Maybe elevate him to speaker or a senator, put him on some influential board. He is a CIA agent, again, no ex-CIA. He's a CIA agent, ex-Green Beret. He fits the profile very well. And don't forget that this guy chose to go work for Trump for 16 months, and until this whole Iran thing, he was on board with all of it. He was on board with the genocide. He was on board with funding Ukraine and destabilizing Russia. He was on board with all of it. And now he's coming out and screaming about Charlie Kirk. I feel like he is part of this whole Marjorie Taylor Greene, new right, America first, not Israel first part of the split within the Republican Party. Okay, finally, again, INN News just last week did a 45-minute segment just about Joe Kent and whether he has ulterior motives or whether he actually did resign in protest or both. It's possible that it's both. All right. So that's our lightning round. Go check out INN News at the INN channel over on YouTube. And you can get the clip over there. All right. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. Cash App, $, Indie News Network. Ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. Patreon.com/Indie News Network. INNnewsletter.com and IndieMediaToday.com over at Substack. And our news website, IndieNewsNow.com, where you can also leave a tip or pick up merch or read news from over 100 different independent sources. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. All right. I love you all, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Next is this clip from Macroaggressions with host Charlie Robinson.
So much to cover, and it's hard to know where to focus, so we're going to monitor several situations. Of course, we're going to talk about what's going on with the American empire and how it most definitely feels like the wheels are coming off of it. The only question is, have the nuts and bolts been intentionally loosened, or was this just poor maintenance over the years? So we'll get into that, and I have thoughts on the direction that we're going. It's not great. It has to do with the North American technate. It has the Monroe Doctrine, Trump Roe Doctrine, whatever we want to call it. Now, we'll get into that. The wheels are actually falling off of California. I have, on the one hand, I take a little bit of pleasure in this because it is my home state. And I would feel differently if California was stricken by some external force like a meteor that came in and did a lot of damage. I would feel bad for the California residents there. But this is all preventable. And in fact, you guys asked for this. You voted for it. You brought people in. And so we'll get into that. California has been one of my favorite topics for a while because it's just like a terrarium of bad ideas that you can watch happen in real time. It's fascinating. I want to talk a little bit about the media landscape and the direction that we're going with that. This is a huge problem. And it's the media has always been a problem, but now the ownership structure of the media is making this. Well, I think you can extrapolate out where it's going. We'll spend a little bit of time on that. I want to talk about AI because it's creeping in, as we know, and then I'll wrap up with where we're going financially because there's issues in the credit market, and I had. I talked about the best person you could speak to on that, which is Catherine Austin Fitts, about what we were seeing with the private credit industry. We'll wrap up with that, so stick around. It's going to be worth getting into. But, it feels like everything, everywhere, all at once. And I believe that is intentional. That when you're getting to the end of empire, when you're living through a fourth turning, it's going to feel like everything's accelerating. I think in part because it is. And as you watch something circling the drain, like actually circling a drain, you throw a little leaf in there and you watch it circle. And as it gets to the final moments before it eventually goes down the drain, that circle gets very tight and everything moves extremely fast, right? The whirlpool, in the end, ultimately uses its momentum and sucks you under. And that's where it feels like we were, you're out there taking a nice swim. What is this? It feels like maybe I'm stuck in a little bit of a riptide, a little current here. Oh, it's nothing I can't handle. I'll still manage this. I'll take a look. And next thing you know, you've been pulled out into some rough waters and things are happening much faster than you anticipated. That, unfortunately, is where we are with the end of empires. And we've been, for better or for worse, we've been plugging along here for the last couple of decades. It's been relatively smooth. And it's funny because I was listening to the radio today and they were talking about a song. It was a Smash Mouth song. They're like, this song came out like 30 years ago and it was talking about how the world was on fire with in the 90s with all this chaos and everything. And I'm listening to the whole thing going on. Wow. I was in my 20s living through the mid 90s. Maybe it feels like it's on fire for every generation. But in comparison now, looking back in the 90s, the way, knowing what I know about where we are today, there was no chaos at all. The world was not on fire, as a matter of fact. And there was like a hell of a lot more unity. It's funny because I lived through the Rodney King riots. I mean, when I say lived through them, I was living in South Central Los Angeles when I came out my door and there's smoke everywhere because everything's on fire. And that was race relations between black and white America are at all-time lows during the Rodney King things. I'm thinking, it's still the way it was back then in 92 is infinitely better than it is now. I mean, white people and black people didn't have a ton of interaction. I'd say at this point, the term fatigued has entered the conversation, the lexicon, and it is being used quite a bit, right? So things are quite different. So I think a little bit of perspective, just hearing them talk about how, this song was written at a time in the 90s when things were chaotic. I was like, what are you talking about? Things were, in retrospect, very normal. But I think that when you're in it, it feels like it's the end of the world, right? And so we're in this right now, and it feels end of empire, fourth turning. It feels like everything is happening everywhere all at once, but is it? Maybe it's just because we're aware of it. Maybe if we lived in, on some island somewhere and didn't have internet access, it wouldn't feel like everything everywhere all at once. It would feel like nothing's happening, right? So I suppose it's a matter of your perspective and where you are in the world and where you are in your life, the course of your life and in terms of how you view things and whether or not this is, you need like the senior member of the tribe to tell you like, oh, this is bad. Like it's never been this bad before. Like you thought it was bad before, but this is the worst. Like you need somebody with proper perspective. And I will say that given that, I'm not super old, but in my early 50s now, in Gen X, and right square in the middle of Gen X too, we have this unusual upbringing where we have 1 foot in the analog world and 1 foot in the digital world. And that may be helpful, may also be a problem too, because we're not really committed to either one. But we know how it used to be. I suppose that's the difference, is that maybe younger people or have been born in this digital world and they can't comprehend what it was like before that for obvious reasons, but we can, and we remember what it's like. And so I think there's a profound sadness for a lot of us that remember what it was like, because it's not like that anymore. And it's not going to be like that anymore. And you can get into your DeLorean if you want and set a course for 1996 if you'd like, but it's not going to be there when you get there because things are different, And this is, it's wild because we're watching things right now that have stood for centuries being destroyed in a matter of weeks. You know, you're watching cathedrals in Europe that have stood for hundreds of years be burned out, right? And you see that and you go, well, there's got to be more cathedrals, right? It's not the end of the world if one of them goes, but then another one goes, and then another one goes. And then 9 million Africans are in Western Europe, and you go, this is fine, right? You turn into the meme with the dog and the room on fire. This is fine. It's not fine. You tell yourself it's fine. You probably need to tell yourself it's fine, but it's not fine. This isn't okay. You don't get to unfuck this. You don't get to get the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria and fill them up with all the people that you don't like and send them back to the Middle East or Africa or wherever. That's not going to happen. The Trump administration ran on a policy of we're going to actually do that. Have they done it? No. No. They're not, because they're not going to do that. It's all talk. You know, fourth turnings don't ask for permission. They just come in and they crush everything. The end of empires don't get scheduled on the calendar. They catch you when you're not paying attention. Well, I think we're paying attention. I feel like if we're not at higher ground now, we're on the path towards getting there. And I don't think most people are even awake to the situation that we're facing. Bank runs happen in minutes, not weeks. You know, the idea that there's going to be people lined up at their banks like, ABC News is reporting there's a bunch of people lined up in the bank. If you're at the point where you're lined up at your bank, it's over. It is over for you. If you're figuring it out only when the mainstream media is telling you, hey, there might be a problem with the banking system, it's over for you. FDIC is not going to make you whole. They're insolvent. They're invested in bonds that are upside down. That's not going to happen. I mean, it's called a strategy of tension for a reason. Because if they can get you off your game and they can get you worried about things, a lot of things that are out of your control too. I mean, holy shit, the amount of things that I worry about on a daily basis that will A, never impact me, B, I can't fix, change, or do anything about anyway, and C, they never wind up happening. And then I've spent this emotional energy running through scenarios about what I would do if that event happened. And meanwhile, it just never does. So the strategy of tension is impossible to quantify, what it does to people, what it does to a society, because you can't measure the amount of time that people spend worrying. You just know that it accumulates over time, and that at some point it create so much stress on the person that they snap, that they break, that they give up. They maybe mentally give up, and then physically you're done. Anybody who knows somebody who's been extremely sick and is just sort of at the end said, I think I'm done here, they are done. They typically pass away pretty quickly after that. So if you can convince people that they're up against forces that they can't battle, it's like the old, the elephant that has the chain on its leg to the small little wooden spike. You don't need the chain. You could put a small rope around his leg that he could pull the stake out anyway. But as a baby, you try a couple times, you fail, you're taught, well, I'm staked to this place. This is the only place where I can be. The chains are too strong. It's not even worth my time to fight back. That's demoralization. That's where they get you. This is the reason why they show us the Ghost in the Machine videos. This is the reason why they put that on YouTube and don't bury it in some classification somewhere, because they want you to see that. They want you to know that they're out there, the digital boogeyman trying to mess with you. Because if you now incorporate that into your worldview, yesterday you didn't know that that was a possibility. Today you do. And now you behave differently because of that. They may be watching you. They may be reading your emails. They may be tapping into your cell phone camera and taking pictures of you while you're on the toilet. They may be doing all these things. Now, as soon as you're aware of that, your behavior changes. So when they say that, you're monitoring the situation, the mere act of observing the situation isn't going to do anything about it, they're actually wrong. When you know that you're being monitored, you behave differently. Right. Now, I'm not saying that people just watching TV or staring at your computer are going to fix the situation. Right? I don't actually believe that. But you're not trying to fix the situation. You're just trying to get yourself sort of to a level of understanding about what you're facing. We're now officially in PSYOP season. I look around, I see them everywhere. And not for nothing, but the United States Army told you that they were with the Ghost in the Machine video. And so did the Mossad when they, with their 60-minute video with Leslie Stahl, where they said, we are a global production company. We create reality. So again, when you're watching your television at night and you're trying to get a gauge on what's going on in the Middle East, first of all, if you're watching the nightly news you're not going to know what's happening. You're going to be propagandized. You're going to be believing something else. But if you're out there trying to actively gather information from sources that you believe to be correct, I think the problem with this, well, first of all, there is no problem with gathering the information, trying to understand what's going on. Where you get into situations is that you're going to understand what's going on, and that means you're going to see when they pull the false flag to drag people into supporting boots on the ground in Iran. You're going to have the eyes to see it, like Bill Cooper did in the lead up to 9/11. If you were listening to that broadcast that Bill Cooper did in June or July of 2001, where he said, there's going to be an event with Osama bin Laden, and they're going to blame it on him, and don't you believe it? Right? Well, if you have the eyes to see that a massive false flag is coming that will be pinned on Iran, it'll be pulled off by America and Israel, of course, either on American soil or maybe in Western European soil. I'm seeing if you know what to look for, you can almost see the setup for the false flag, right? Iran launches missiles, air quotes, launches missiles at Diego Garcia. And they miss Diego Garcia. They don't hit it, but they show that they have the technological capability to launch rockets that far, right? And then someone goes, well, from Iran to Diego Garcia, they get their little fingers out and they measure on the map is this far, 5 inches on the map, and then they hold it up 5 inches and they go, okay, well, from Tehran to London, oh, that's 5 inches as well. Oh, holy shit. So wait a second. The missiles that coincidentally missed Diego Garcia, launched by Iran, have shown that they can at least make it that far. Of course, coincidentally, they missed, right? But we've now shown that they can make it that far. So it stands to reason that they could make it that far in the other direction, right? So if a Iranian, air quotes, Iranian missile landed in London, that would be enough to say that the Iranians did it, and then we've got to get them there. We got to have boots on the ground, right? We might even have to have NATO. It's a Article 5 instance, right? We got to get everybody. Everybody's got to jump in this war, right? You can see how that would be prepped. Imagine us talking about that here, and then 6 weeks from now, it winds up happening, and you're aware of this, and you're screaming to everybody who will listen to you and your family in the car, at work, at school, wherever you go. I fucking called this. It was coming. We knew it was coming. Go listen to this episode. It said it was. Now what? You did it. You accurately called your shot in advance, not because you're psychic, not because you're Nostradamus, not because you're Karnak, you did it because you put the pieces together and you understand how these people behave and how they operate and what you would do if you were a diabolical monster trying to start World War III and you got the stick and you're sticking it to the person and they won't do anything. Come on, fight back. And you go, well, we might have to, like pretend like this guy fought us. So once you understand these tactics, it's so hard for them to, well, it's not hard for them to pull it off. It's just hard for them to get universal approval of it. It's hard to not have, they're never going to get us, right? We're always going to be, monitoring the situation like we're at a Buffalo Wild Wings on a Saturday afternoon during college football season, right? We got 18 different games going on. We're trying to follow all of them. We feel it's our duty and obligation to pay attention. So, but again, let's extrapolate out where this is going. Have you been watching as they put the pieces together for the North American Technate? Because when Trump got back into office, he starts going on and on about Greenland. And people are like, this is a very strange obsession that he has with Greenland. And then, but he actually kind of started talking about this a couple years ago. And now he's back, and the first thing he's talking about is Greenland. And he also mentioned the Panama Canal, and he was saying how it has to be taken over by, the Chinese have control of it through Hutchison, and we can't have that. We've got to have BlackRock get involved, and so we're going to have BlackRock take over the Panama Canal. And you're going, okay, you're back in office, and the first weekend you're going on and on about Panama Canal and Greenland. Surely we have bigger priorities than that, right? What is the obsession with that? And then Venezuela happens, right? And people go, okay, this is actually starting to look like a different map. And they pull up the North American Technate map. And if you pull that map up, you'll see that it goes from Greenland to Venezuela. And you go, holy shit, okay, there's something else going. And then Cuba happens, right? So I guess the good news is, if you want to call it good news, is that if you're looking at the North American Technate map and you notice that it has Greenland and it has Venezuela and it has Canada and America, one of the things you can do with that map is you can assume that they are telegraphing their place. You know where they're going next. It's going to be on that map, right? Cuba is next. It just is. It's been a problem. See, everyone always wondered, what is the problem with Cuba? Why does America hate Cuba so much? You would think, we've had a blockade on them for 70 years. They must have done something unspeakable to America for us to hate them for 70 years. They're right there. We could do almost anything. We have intentionally kept the thumb. It's because Castro's an awful guy and he treats his people horribly. Yeah. I don't doubt any of that. I'm sure he's a horrible guy who treats his people poorly, or did. But that's not what it is. The reason why the American empire is still... Think about who holds a grudge this long. You know who. You know who holds a grudge this long. You know who. It's them. And the reason why America has the relationship it has with Cuba is because Cuba threw the Jewish mafia out of their island. And that was with Santo Traficano, and this was the whole all of the Meyer Lansky and all that shit that was going on in South Florida and Cuba and having to do with that. The reason why America has such a problem with Cuba is because Cuba threw its powerful Jews out of the island. That's why. That's why. Does it make sense now why we've held a 70-year grudge? Because they fucked with the wrong people. And because of that, and so Cuba was like Ukraine back in the 30s. It was the place where you could go to do whatever you wanted. Casinos and beaches and women and God knows what was going on there, right? And this is where the mafia was running a lot of their operations out of, the Jewish mafia. The real mafia. They, We get the Italian mafia, Sopranos, Goodfellas, all that stuff. Okay, but that's a smokescreen for who's really involved. So Cuba's on the list. You can watch our behavior towards Cuba. You can see that it's on the North American TechNate. It's on the list, right? The Caribbean's on there too. So at some point, we're just going to take the Caribbean, I suppose. Got to take Haiti, unfortunately. Got to take a country that is so... There's no other way to put it. A country that is so dumb that they ran out of energy, so they cut down all the trees and used the trees for fuel, and now there's no trees. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the island of Hispaniola. It's pretty much cut down the middle, with the Dominican Republic on the eastern half and Haiti on the western half. And Haiti it's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. It has the lowest IQ. It has the lowest GDP. It's the lowest everything. There's nothing going on there. Ironically, though, Bill and Hillary Clinton spent their honeymoon in Haiti, as you do, right? And then Laura Silsby, who worked for the Clinton Foundation, got busted stealing 33 children from Haiti, and Bill Clinton had to fly to Port-au-Prince on a private jet and negotiate for her release and then get her out of there. And then she took a job working for the Amber Alert system to track missing kids. I'm sorry, a bit of a tangent there. It's just that when you mention Haiti, my mind goes to Bill and Hillary Clinton, who also ran the Clinton-Bush Haiti Relief Fund, in which a couple $100 million vanished from there as well. So if you're going to be the American empire and you're going to take over the North American TechNate, you're going to have to take Haiti as well. Sorry, that's just... So I predict... I'm going to my meditative state. I predict 1 million Haitians coming to America in the next couple of years. Get ready for that. That's going to be fun. They're eating the cats. They're eating the cats. They're not eating the cats. They are eating the ducks, though, out of the pond. They most certainly are eating the ducks. I don't know if they're eating the cats. Oh, fuck. They're probably eating the cats. Let's be honest.
Now, we have this clip from The Last American Vagabond with host Ryan Christian.
This out on yesterday, and I just want to show you guys that we are starting our garden again this year, and that what you're seeing here are just the small middle of the yard things we added on in addition to the garden that we have to grow lettuce and other things. And it's really nice to see it. It's really important, I think, that we do this, and not only for the outlet, to find reasons to get outside and, as I said, touch grass. Remember what we're fighting for. But on top of that, just to, find a reason, the outlet to lose yourself in it. Like, so part of it is to just get involved in, I guess the two parts would be to do that and then to do it to prepare. Not for some, 30 seconds away, we're all going to die kind of event. Well, that too, but just to be smart, to be prepared, to be self-sustainable. These aren't necessarily we're all going to die tomorrow kind of thing. They're just intelligent, being prepared and making sure you can be sustainable should something happen, something that has always ever happened in every history, I guess confusing way to say that. There will always be an event. Every history, every currency, there's never been a fiat currency that has continued forever, right? There will always be a point at which something ends and collapses, and it's just being prepared for that. It's been a long time. Give me some feedback here real quickly. Let me know you guys can hear me. Let me double check, make sure this is playing. Some weird reason I'm just seeing. Yeah, this is playing. Good. Some of the other platforms seem to be acting funny, just showing 0. So let's get into this then. But on that note, just again, find that time, guys. Whatever job what you're doing, whether it's this or something else, find the time to do your best to break away, because we all need it, and it really is important. Now, this is something we're going to get to after the opening point, but just want to throw it out there for those that have, or maybe just caught the beginning and you just wanted to, I just want this in somebody's mind out there. Derek wrote this article, 2024, November 30th. Meet the spyware companies prepared to unleash their tech during Trump's second term. Now, this is important for whether the app came out or not. And I just wanted to, demonstrate our value yet again, that had we been focused on these things, and I'll even make the point that had we been focused on the people who were covering this long before TLAV was ever talking about it, long before I was ever doing this, same point applies. that we had an opportunity to maybe stop some of these things that are happening. And this is not necessarily the at point, but just the idea that this kind of stuff, spyware, Pegasus spyware, Paragon Solutions, NSO Group, all kind of the same point, it's exploding. And literally has blended in to the background of a Virginia-based, US-based company. I'll show you. It's called Red Lattice. And it literally has blended between, like, so basically this is something that was being kicked aside because everyone in the world was calling it what it was, a fraudulent criminal. I mean, like this is the one that's important right here. Oops, that's the wrong one. We'll come back to all these, but just for people to remember, they were literally caught, an Israeli spyware firm caught by other governments for hacking, for spying on journalists. This is quite literally the same stuff that is immersed with U.S. industry and government, literally. So that point being there, I think, is relevant for when we get into the app and whatever's behind it, which appears to be other companies we'll talk about. Just realizing that this is something for the point of stopping this stuff that we had an opportunity to stop, to push back on. But so many screaming partisans out there stop people from caring about what really mattered. Always. So let's start with that point. The idea of partisanship and how insane this all is. Now, this is an important thing that we touched on this before. I mean, only important in my mind insofar as that we discuss the reality of protesting and constitutional rights and the manipulation within all of that, and how governments will always try to manipulate, gaslight, astroturf every single chance they get. And if we can just accept that basic reality, verifiable throughout my entire time doing this, ever since I've started, then we can acknowledge that it's not one side or one group or one thing. Now, yes, clearly, whatever topic you pick, there's going to be a slant. Maybe, or, a 1% difference or 100%, that at some point it's going to either be, it's always a mixed bag in my opinion, and it's going to lean one way or the other. Doesn't always mean that it's one thing or the other only. And within that, in every topic we deal with, you get political partisans who are aggressively trying to misrepresent everything for their benefit, for, and their personal benefit and their political team benefit. So this topic is interesting because last time, what did we hear? Incessantly, not like for weeks, they're going to, basically fever pitch, the country is going to collapse. Burning things down, murder, violence, dangerous, and even the suggestion that it was somehow also overlapped with foreign entities. The same old, you pick the same story. Now, any of those things you shouldn't deny either, or rather disregard. You should consider while looking for evidence. The point is, you can clearly see, as any other major event, whether organized from that starting point or not, was eventually influenced, funded by plenty of big political organizations, PACs, whatever. But the point was, which that we'll get into why that matters in a second, because it should, and we should care. We should take note of what group seems to be influencing whatever we're dealing with, because organic anything today seems to be part of the story, if any. Right? The point being is even an organic thing will start and things will get manipulated. People can show up on their own accord and join it, and always. So we shouldn't assume one way or the other. But last time, what happened? Nothing. There was zero violence, which that could have been the plan from the coordinated event, which ultimately at that point, what difference does it make? We'll get into this. The idea being that there was nothing that they hyped, even to where it ended up being some kind of, that's, I'm not to get into all the dumb stuff. The point is that it ended up being not violent. The only real main events that happened were because of MAGA protesters doing things to the people that were there. Now, that's not to say that that's the violent side. It goes both ways, guys. If you're not ridiculous and you pay attention just barely beyond one administration, you'll see that it goes both ways. Like anybody I've ever talked to who does this nonpartisan perspective work will agree, because it does. And I'll make this point when we get into this right now about what we saw from the Republican side of this. What's important to me is that we understand what this seems to be doing. Even if every claim they're making is correct, when a crime is committed and there's something that people, then go for it, go after it. Otherwise, if there's not a crime and you've got major political institutions which are funding and gaslighting and astroturfing, then call it out. The point is that every single side does this today. And the reality is, if we start to say they can't do this, or the point of just anybody, because that's what it comes down to. You think you're going to stop Elon Musk from dumping money into things, the Koch brothers or George Soros is in? No, you're not, because that's going to continue to happen. I will agree with anybody that is a problem in this situation. The answer is not to say stop that from happening, because what happens then is we cannot coordinate. So hypothetically, if I'd gone out to this No Kings protest myself personally in Nashville and walked out there, would I suddenly be a Democrat operative? I don't mean the people who want to pretend that's the case. I mean, as an independent, nonpartisan person, I had half a mind to go out and just see what was going on, whether I supported it or not. Would I then become a Democrat operative? Because that's the kind of game that's being played. They're all shills and it's all paid for and it's all X, Y, and Z. And that's just dumb. So let's go through this with an open mind and recognize that there's 100% political manipulation taking place. And my mind, especially for those that are, in addition to what I was going to say, and see it as the full two-party illusion reality, that there's a game being played to get you to attack the other side. So my point on top of all of it is that even if everything they're saying is true, the game is only to get you to drive and take action against your neighbor, not the government who's playing both sides against each other. That's always the point. And I frankly think that most people see that today. That's why it's becoming harder and harder for these things to gain any momentum, because immediately people like us are like, well, skeptical, question it. Don't blindly take any of it at face value. And so everyone's coming into it with a level of skepticism, and we're watching for things. So let's start with this clip. I mean, even my point is I try to kind of get a quick encapsulation to start, is that even that, there's somebody that's going to be hearing that and think that I left out a certain part that causes X, Y, and Z, and probably from an honest place. I just want to really stress that whether I included everything or not, which we'll go through here, you don't have to believe me, question me, but this is coming from a place that is not taking a side. This is not about one group versus the other. This is not about left versus right. It's not about no kings. It's about any group, left or right, Republican or liberal or Democrat, whatever, who want to stand up, whether or not they know a thing is manipulated or whether it is or not, and simply express themselves. Go out there with a sign they made or one they bought or somebody gave them when they walked up and say, I don't think this is right. If we can't allow that, if we get to a point to where anybody even doing that, whether of their own volition or not, is somehow now suspect because of the partisan game, we have lost. It's over, at least in regard to whatever this experiment it is. And that's really important to think about, because the ability for us to go out and speak our minds freely is so important in this situation. And I just think, think about what happened at January 6th. And think about how clearly anybody who's, and this is important for those that want to think this is about me secretly being on one side or the other. You know how vocally we stood up for the people of January 6th, how continually to this very moment, even with recent people who I think were pretending to be more objective and more open-minded to things, too partisan, government, whatever, who got immediately angry when the argument became, well, I don't think that represents most conservatives. Oh, the MAGA morons and all the, it's like, well, reality for me was that there was a core group of people that were very manipulative. That's very clear, very aggressive. And there was a lot within there that connected back to all sorts of government things. Go into the Capitol. But the vast majority that I could see were just conservatives who genuinely, whether right or not, whether correct or not, believed that they were stolen from, believed that there was something they were doing, something they were standing up for that mattered. Anybody that committed violence, there's a crime. You could call them out, arrest them, including the government who shot somebody or the person who broke in. The point is so clear, guys. It's easy to see how this will go in the direction, which is anti-American, which is against the ability to do any of this. Now, what this is going to be is a clip from somebody. It's a part of a clip. It's like a 7-minute segment. I watch most of it, but it doesn't really add that much more, except for the point that it's very petty, the politics you get from left and right today, CNN, Fox News. It's always very derisive and making fun of them. There's no real effort to be objective and make it sort of, which, hey, all fairness, I do that half the time too, because we're talking about people that I think are ridiculous. So maybe that's what they think. Maybe I should stop doing that. The point is that when you're watching this, I think it's very clear to see that instead of coming at this like these people could be out there doing their own thing or this could be paid, it comes out, well, they make fun of the age. Are they taking Metamucil and very meant to completely laugh at what they're doing instead of recognize that what they're doing is a foundational part of this country that journalism is supposed to be a part of. You get the point. So what he is saying, or what she's saying rather, he's reporting on, is that this is something that is paid for. Billions and billions of dollars. And she doesn't make it, I'll let it speak for itself. It's not some very manipulative thing other than the implication that this then undermines the overall point. Let's watch it first.
These 500 groups with, get this, a $3 billion budget collectively. And where does their political influence, their political contributions, and their, individual employee donations go, but mostly to the Democratic Party. And that's why we see this silence. And unfortunately, they pull their punches on the issues that matter to you, for example, that you just cited, because that would mean turning against the Democratic politicians that they're trying to keep in power.
It's so great to have you with us today, Kevin.
So simply, the things that you decide to care about. Well, okay, let's take a step back and realize that people have different things they care about, right? So how dare they not stand up and scream about the things that you guys think they should scream about, which is essentially what they talked about. And of course, you could argue because everybody would care about this thing. Well, that's your opinion, right? That they must have done it. If they don't, that means they're hiding for the Democrats. It's very subjective. Maybe they're right. I just think it's really stupid of us to listen to corporate media who wants to give you subjective ideas when you're supposed to be presenting this as a fact-based report. Now, what you can discuss, which we'll go over, including what Grok's perspective is on it, only from a partisan view to understand that it's even what they're framing for you from people like Eric Dougherty is about trying to make this sound invalid. That's what this really comes down to. Holy smokes, different than holy crap, but I guess there's a varying level of importance. It was just confirmed that no King's protests are confirmed. Now, this is what I love. Now, first of all, she works for Fox News. The clip that he was playing is a woman that works for Fox News Digital. She comes on and makes this statement, and then it ripples through. Now, I'm going to take it at face value just to make the point today. And I do think it's subjective for a few reasons we'll get into. But realize that these people do not verify this stuff. I've proven this 100 times over. It's now confirmed because Fox said it out loud. You mean the Fox News platform that gets just as much wrong as CNN? They don't care, guys. It's about the narrative control. It's about team sport politics. Fox investigated and found it's George Soros and Neville Singham linked groups and nonprofits. Well, actually, that's not as accurate. It's Soros was a part of that. And then, of course, Marxist groups were involved, communism, they were there for a revolution. Well, okay. Well, what they're talking about, by the way, are groups that showed up and protested alongside them. You know what I mean? And this is what's so frustrating about this is, yeah, well, it certainly could be something that they organized because they believed in that, and that still would be their right to protest that. Are we going to pretend like we didn't hear Republicans screaming about revolution, about overthrowing the government? Yeah, because they both did it. It's just silly that we act, clutch my pearls about when they say the things that we were just screaming, because they're the bad ones, because we can all tell, right? The point, though, on top of that, is that these groups, or like anywhere else, can show up. So people have a massive protest, a nationwide protest. Do you think that literally everybody that walked into this protest were just all part? People walked from the streets and stood up there. Maybe they have their own personal things to call for. So people there that are protesting for anything, the assumption that everything said anywhere in this group is indicative of what the organization wants you to think is got to be the dumbest argument in the conversation today. It could, and I wouldn't deny that, but it also could be a group that showed up and brought their signs and said, here's what I think on top of that they just mashed together because it's all politics. It's even frustrating that we have to go through these very basic understandings of, just objectivity, but that's what we have to do today.
Next is this clip from Cognitive Dissidents with Monica Perez, Parallel Mike, and Hervoye Morik.
Welcome to another episode of Cognitive Dissidents. I'm Monica Perez of The Monica Perez Show.
This is Hervoye from Geopolitics and Empire.
This is Mike from the Parallel Systems broadcast.
We have a ton to talk about since our last show. I learned a new acronym, TACO. Trump always chickens out. So Trump gave Iran an ultimatum that if you don't capitulate to our demands, we're going to open the Straits of Hormuz, which seems like a suicide mission. He couldn't get Europe to get on board. So then I believe somebody, not Iran, popped off on Diego Garcia Island, this refueling station and other things in the middle of nowhere to prove that Europe is in danger from Iran. But that didn't seem to make a big splash. Europe is not coming to the rescue of the Straits of Hormuz. It would be a shooting gallery. So the deadline was Tuesday. The deadline passed. Trump capitulated or withdrew or whatever, but of course didn't put it that way. Rumors are that he wants to go into Karg Island, which would be another shooting gallery. It's heavily defended by Iran. It's completely within range of their missiles, so that would be bad too. Yet the U.S. is sending 3,000 Marines into the area, and I think the implication is it's Karg Island. I think they might be going to Djibouti, which is across from Yemen. There's another strait over there that, if closed, would prevent traffic from going in and out of the Suez Canal. So that's a very serious issue. The Straits of Hormuz are clogging up, slowing down so many vital resources, from oil to, as Mike's recent episode talked about, the components of fertilizer. If they actually also closed off the straits next to Yemen, between Yemen and Djibouti, that would really screw up the Suez Canal. So I think Iran's play could be to go through Oman, if they will side with Iran, to have a land route into Yemen and close up those straits too. I think that's the next step. And in short, I think this entire thing is, the world may be scripted and it may be moving us all into a new world order, but I believe there was a little bit of desperate optimism in Israel starting this now. And I think it's probably a little less tidy than they thought it was going to be. But I don't know what you guys think about any of that.
Well, I think this was all planned. And we touched on it last time. I think our clip got some play on X. And this is the Great Reset. This is the sequel to COVID. And I've been basically saying, it's like the elites are saying, oh, so, you guys, you wouldn't buy the global warming theory, climate changeism. So basically what we're doing now, we're just pulling the plug. We don't care anymore. And the Iran war, if you just picture it, it's kind of like, yeah, you're talking about Israel and Trump, but it's basically, what are they doing? The West launches bombs. They just blow up the oil fields, the energy fields, which then means no fertilizer, which means no food, which means everyone now has to stay home, government workers staying home, COVID measures, no school, drive your car every other day. It's like, that's literally the Great Reset. Like Trump is just blowing up oil fields. And it's like, okay, we're just going to blow up some oil fields, and we're blowing up the oil fields. And that's it. Now there's no oil worldwide and no food, and everyone stays home. Like, that's the Iran war. It's like, it's not a war in Iran. I've been saying it's the war to implement the new world order, the new neo-feudalism, and we are the serfs.
I want to tell you that I think Americans are being insulated from that. I have seen other energy, that like Ukraine hit a big energy port for Russia, and we have a refinery that imports, I think, mainly Venezuelan oil in Texas that was on fire. But here, like Mike's excellent report on fertilizer, you point out, Mike, that this is the week. And as I just listened to your show and I'm looking out the window, not 30 minutes before I turned on your show this morning, a dump truck came and dumped 3 cubic feet of compost on my front lawn. And we've got to move it by wheelbarrow to our little vineyard because this is the week. You simply have to fertilize this week. However, I asked my husband, and the cost was the same this year as last year. So we are not experiencing shortages or scares. Our gasoline prices are up, but not higher than I've ever seen them ever. Quite high, as high as they've ever gotten, but not higher than that. And I think they're trying to insulate Americans from that fear-mongering they're spreading around the rest of the world. Maybe they want the rest of the world to get involved in the fight, and they want Americans not to take to the streets to try to end it. But I think there's definitely some local-centered, what Elul called obsessional propaganda, where you actually feel the pain. That's the propaganda. They're insulating us from that, but making other people feel it.
Just on that point, the energy is being hit hardest, it seems, at the moment in Asia. And there were reports saying that this is going to affect millions, maybe billions, hundreds of millions of the world's poor. So effectively, again, this is eugenics. This is what are the words here? Eugenics, depopulation. The climate poverty is what they call it. Energy poverty. That's a form of eugenics, because that means that the poorest are going to suffer. They won't have, for transport, in the third world countries, cooking, fuel, food won't get to them. And that's a form of eugenics. So if the injection was during round 1, the main eugenics weapon, now it's going to be energy. And so because for America, as you say, I think America is using it as the carrot or stick right? Because America is leading the New World Order. Like, I'm done with, we were talking off air. Trump is leading the New World Order. I just wrote an article about that, about the multipolar.
But
yeah.
It might, I'm really interested in what you guys think about this. I feel like there are some elements of unpredictability or personal interests that if Iran does better in this conflict than America banked on, it could. See, I think we're going to have a bipolar world before we have one world. I think like Russia and China and, just because for whatever reason, it's better for them to split it up at this point. And if Iran goes a certain way, the kind of 51-49 split could tilt towards China. China could benefit. China could co-opt Taiwan and deal with North Korea if we're not as all powerful as we were letting on.
Yeah, I think it plays into all narratives in a sense. Like it plays into America looks like an ailing superpower. It looks desperate. The empire's collapsing. It plays into this patriotic Trump MAGA narrative that is bringing back business to America, is laying down the law across the world and taking out the bad guys. It plays to the rise of BRICS narrative. So all of the narratives work with this one thing. But ultimately, yeah, I don't think there's any winners in this. And we was talking about the fertilizer and the energy production. I kind of agree with you, Monica, that I think they're setting up a narrative where the US gets to rule over the ashes. So, Nord Stream gets taken out. They bombed Qatar's Ras Laffan LNG plant. That produces 20% of the world's LNG. But of course, the US wants to take over the LNG trade. That's the whole point of taking out Nord Stream. So if the Ras Laffan plants, they said it's going to be offline, parts of it at least, for 5 years, and it's going to cost them $20 billion a year. Well, the US will take up that slack and start importing LNG to Europe. So I think a lot of these narratives are going to be beneficial to the US, but only in the sense that they're consolidating power over the new empire, which will be the ashes of the old world. And then you're going to have this bifurcation where you have the Eastern Bloc that will separate and go its own way. And, most of those Middle Eastern states, they already export way more oil to China now, right? So this petrodollar system that we all knew about and that we've had for 50 plus years, that's gone. So because that system's gone, they're now dismantling it, and they're dismantling it in a way, or the US is, that works for the US. And then you're going to have whatever's left over pieced together, and that'll create the Eastern Bloc. So that's why I think this is happening. The old system's dead. The financial system is coming apart. And so it's a case of a smash and grab. Everybody can get what they want. But who else has like you say this all the time, Provider, it's like Revelation. Who can fight the beast? The US is too powerful, so it can do these things. And Trump really is the conduit of it because he creates the narrative that makes it patriotic. But yeah, I don't see it that way. I think it's going to be catastrophic. There'll be lots of famine. Europe is going to be in a tough spot. And I think that's probably why they created this whole Europe and the City of London narrative, and the US is taking it on. Trump's getting rid of the City of London. It's like, these are lazy narratives because we know that they're all in it together.
Yeah, and I guess maybe if I can share my the articles, just to add to what you're saying. Let's see, loading it up here. You can see it. Yeah, and I just wanted to add because I wrote the article on the multipolarism stuff, and as you said, Mike. So we're going to this multipolar world, which has been Western globalist led for a century. And the Bible also talks about the kings of the East coming together. That can be Iran and China and BRICS, Russia, whatever. But the way towards world government and the world state is this multipolarism, is the regional unions. Like I put it in my article. You've got the Club of Rome, you've got Clarence Strait, you've got technocracy, you've got like on and on official documents for a century saying we're going to put regions. That is multipolarity. And then for the MAGA Trump tards, it's like, who are, talking about Iran bad. Look, I'm an American Christian. And it's like, do we not realize that this war, I tweeted this yesterday. I don't understand the Americans who frame war with Iran as the correct Christian freedom loving thing to do. Because isn't war on Iran actually part of the prophesied project for technocracy, Middle Eastern Union to form Satan's world union? So you are actually bringing about Satan's project while you're saying, oh, I'm a Christian and the Iranians are terrorists. I'm like, it's totally the inverse. You're helping bring about Satan's technate and world state. And then some of the articles that we got, New South Wales Premier calls for COVID-style protocols. I'm like, could it be any more obvious to manage the fuel crisis? Japan, people are remember the toilet paper panic for COVID? It's now happening in Japan. They've warned citizens against panic buying of toilet paper in Japan. South Korea now is doing the 5-day vehicle rotation. So they have strict license plate based rationing system. Isn't it funny here in Mexico? Last year, we all had to get new license plates that were easier to read with QR codes. And I've been saying in Mexico City, you can only drive your car every other day. I've noticed the pattern here in Mexico. I want to bring up this story. Here in Mexico, in Guadalajara, we didn't have vehicle emissions until 3 or 4 years ago. So they bring in vehicle emissions. And then in the news, they never talked about the air quality. And then the newspaper, like 2 years ago, started doing every week scare propaganda about, oh, the weather the air is dirty. You should stay home. You shouldn't go outside. You shouldn't use your car. Soon they're going to do in Guadalajara, you can use your car every other day. And why did they give us new license plates? Because then they can use the license plate readers, have a license plate-based rationing system. And Scheinbaum just announced by the end of this year in Mexico, you can't pay for gasoline in cash. And in the other Asian countries, the rationing fuel, and you have to do it through QR codes. So they're setting up the infrastructure now for literal global communist globalism. And then some of the other stories in Britain. Okay, what does the Iran war have to do with installing solar panels and heat pumps on your house in Britain? So now they're going to force people to install, requiring new homes in England to be installed with heat pumps and solar. This is what I said earlier. This is the war for neo-feudalism. It's like, we're just pulling the plug. Okay, guys, accept the neo-feudalism. Food rationing. What else are the other stories? Laos closing schools. And then Aaron Day pointed out the IAEA just published a 10-point plan. Again, alternative driving, speed limit reductions, no air travel where possible, switch from gas cooking to electric, work from home where possible, net zero, death zero. So I'll stop my little rant there.
But we called this 3 weeks ago in the last Cognitive Dissidents. We said energy lockdowns are what they're going to start to push. And sure enough, within days, that was what everybody was discussing. Slovenia have already done rationing at the fuel pump. The UK have had an emergency COBRA meeting. The last time we had one of them was for COVID, and it was the same exact topics discussed. It was, how do we stop people from using too much energy? They spoke about a £30 limit on fuel, which is about, $40, right? But then what they're going to say is well, some people are taking advantage of it. You've got these people going out and filling up all these cans and going to different stations. How do we stop it? How do we stop the hoarders and the preppers taking all of the food from the supermarkets? We need some kind of digital system to track who's taking what. And that's where it's going to go to. All roads lead to digital ID and technocracy. And so, yeah, I'm very skeptical. But one thing that I am a little bit concerned about is right now, some of those things happening in the Strait of Hormuz really are going to affect how farmers behave. It is going to affect the food supply. 50% of the world's food supply is dependent on the ingredients for fertilizer that come down the strait, which are no longer being transported. And then you also had, now listen to this, I want to get your guys' opinion on it. So the Strait of Hormuz closes. We know that most of the fertilizer is not coming down right at that critical time when farmers are planting. Thousands of miles away in Australia, the largest fertilizer plant suddenly has an unexpected glitch, is what the article said, and it's offline for 2 months. And then thousands of miles away from that, Russia's largest fertilizer plant gets hit by drones. What is the statistical likelihood of those three things happening at the same time, at the same place in history. I just don't think that's legit. So yeah, I'm going to end my little rant there. But personally, yeah, I think those things are the kind of stuff where you have to take notice as an individual because, famines, whilst I don't think we're going to see them in the West, America's got more than enough food that it can produce domestically. Canada does. It's got a small population. Russia's fine. China will probably be okay too. But if you go to, let's say, the Horn of Africa, the Middle East, they import most of their food. They're going to have famines. They're going to have major food shortages. Most Western European nations import most of their food. And whilst they produce a lot, it's not the kind of stuff you could eat as a human. It's for animal feed and stuff like this. So that's going to go offline. So most regions in the world are going to become absolutely destabilized in terms of food. And that will be rationing. And who was it? Was it Kissinger who said, control the food, control the populations? And so I think whilst it looks okay now, in most places, no one's panic buying just yet. Once the public start to get wind of this, they will panic buy. And maybe there's a few warehouses still that are all packed and you'll get the shelves restocked. But at some point, there's nothing else being produced because the farmers ain't planting this year. So fast forward 8 months, 12 months, I think that's when it will really hit. And so, yeah, that's the stuff to prepare for because those are the things that will make a difference to you and I. If the fuel goes offline or you can't afford to fill up the cars quite as much as you normally do, that's not going to have the massive impact on us. But food, that impacts everybody. And so what's happening in the Middle East, yeah, it's going to hit us all at some point, I think.
And just add to that, I think the two biggest near-term threats are, as you laid out, but maybe thinking more conservatively, not going crazy tinfoil, but the impoverishment alone. So as you announced, food supplies and other things people need will be either not as available as they used to be or much more expensive. And so, number one, people are going to take a huge hit to their pocketbook. They'll get knocked down a notch financially, which is like a big blow. And then the second is they'll, on the heels of all this, bringing in the biometric digital ID verification stuff. And that's going to happen. Well, I just showed you, like in real time here in Mexico, Shine Bomb. Like I was just thinking, I started driving at age 16. It was funny because I got my driver's as an American. You can drive 16. I have a driver's license, and then I'd go to Croatia as a 16-year-old and drive, but you can only legally drive at age 18. But it's like I found a loophole because I actually have a legit U.S. driving license, even though I'm underage, so I can drive. But my point is, I can't remember my entire life. I've only ever paid for gasoline in cash. Like I've never used a car, like ever, I think, in my life, ever. And I've driven a car once in Switzerland, Croatia, US, through Canada, here in Mexico. And to think now, for the first time in my life, I won't be able to pay for gasoline in cash. Anyways.
Do you pump your own gas? This is like
the digital ID system already. Do you not both think that we're already there? The infrastructure's there. They record everything that you do with your bank cards. All of our IDs are already on databases. So really, what we're talking about is centralizing it. A lot of people are saying, oh, we need to oppose this. It's like it already exists. It's just the centralization and this kind of like official government wrapper around it all that is now what they're trying to push for. But everything that you buy is already recorded. All of your faces are already on databases. If you took a PCR test, then you've given away, your most personal information in terms of your DNA. So, yeah, I just think it's already there. It's just now they're trying to make it official.
I agree. It is already there. I haven't paid cash for gas and as long as I can remember, because we pay for our own gas and you put a credit card into the thing. Like you pump your own gas, you put the credit card in and you grab the thing, and that's how it works. So that has been de facto the case for a long time. I agree. This is already in place.
I'm canceling this podcast. You're not using cash for gasoline, Monica. No, you're supporting the system.
No, I actually want to hit on that because that's what Mike is saying. The system is already here. And I think, and maybe you guys disagree with me, but I think Mike is more likely to disagree with me than you or Boye. I think that we are not stopping this system. It's already there. I was trying to get some kind of ID for my son, and they insisted on a bank account and a mobile number, and I gave him like the wrong kid's one. I just kind of wanted to keep this other kid off the radar because he was young. And they called me out. They called me and they were like, "What's going on here?" Like, and I'm like, "Oh, so the phone number is the ID and the bank account is the ID. So it's already there." And I think that taking the Benedict option, like getting conscientious objectors during the draft to move to Canada, it unplugs you from the political system. We're not stopping the digitization, but we don't have to be marginalized. So I'm not really super strict when it comes to not getting, although I do still read the newspaper.
I was being silly because someone, again, I get messages.
No, I know, but I'm saying it's a real thing.
No, right. And then the people, again, I reject people's framings. I don't care. And I can't recall, there was an example. Oh, someone left on the YouTube a comment about, alluding to me participating in a system. I'm like, the fact that you're using DARPA internet to comment on DARPA YouTube.
Yeah, you're on GooTube.
You just shot yourself in the foot. So I would believe you if you want to put your money where your mouth is. You are living off-grid Amish, and you're not leaving YouTube accounts. That's putting your money where your mouth is. Even some of the folks, there's a few guys on the Substack notes who sometimes poo-poo this angle. I'm like, well, you're leaving comments on Substack notes, okay? So shut up.
But this is where it gets really silly. I had someone say something similar to me about, I think if you invest in the stock market, then you're contributing to the demonic system. And I'm like, where do you buy your food? Like, well, how do you live? Like, how do you live in this pure puritanical way where you don't have to engage with the system? It's like we all have to engage with the system. And, I live on a farm, so I produce a lot of my own food. I try and not contribute to a lot of stuff. But ultimately, this is the world we've got. There is no pure way to live in this world. And a lot of these things, you're going to have to make some tough decisions on. Just recently, my wife, she had a phone, and she got this phone, and it was a SIM card from another country, and she was like, "Oh, it's a private phone." They just canceled the SIM because she didn't top it up in so many days, gave her number away. Then she's trying to access a bank account, and they're like, "We're going to send you a text." So now she can't get the text. So she's like, "Okay, this is getting difficult." And then they say, "Oh, now you need to upload your biometrics then." So now she's stuck in the loop, and that's how they're going to get you. It's not necessarily because you're going to willingly walk into it, but the moment you slip up or just something like that happens, the phone gets cancelled. Now, to get back into the system, you're going to have to give something up. And that's how they'll get people. And if it comes down to food, if it comes down to your career and paying the bills, people will just make what's easiest. You're not going to make life so difficult that you live on the street. So I think a lot of people will just de facto have to go in that system once the screw gets tight enough. And you can give yourself more room. You can think ahead, plan ahead, but ultimately it's going to be very hard to stay out of those systems. So personally, I just think the best thing you can do is find as much freedom within this paradigm that we're all going into as possible. And there'll be, your digital ID self, and then there'll be the real you in the real world. So focus on the real world stuff and that person. Obviously, if you're in a city, you're going to be surveilled and tracked and everything. But if you plan ahead now, maybe you can create a life for yourself that is still not so difficult to live free in if it does get that bad.
Or at least a safety net. Like, I'm thinking as we build up, I'm going to get a generator, a gas generator. I'm going to eventually have to get a couple of chickens and put a little potato patch. But it's over time, it would be good to be able to grow a little bit of your own food. I have tons of things I want to respond to what you guys are saying, but Herboy, I don't want to do that while you guys are still talking.
Just real quick.
No, take your time.
I was going to say about what Mike was saying. Yeah, for me, it's not some people are calling what you just described, Mike, as the line in the sand. I don't believe it from a biblical worldview. So they've got us by the balls. So you're going to lose access to your banking, whatever, transport. And I'm going to resist for as long as possible, but they're going to shut my account. So I'm going to have to go give, my foreign passport or something, or do a biometrics. I've already given my biometrics.
They have it.
Already, yeah, to the U.S., to
if you have a passport, they have it.
Right. And so for me, that the line in the sand, again, is getting me to say a man is a woman or
Right.
getting me to inject myself. So I'll be in the biometric system, but I will never, whatever the consequences will be at that point, shutting off my account. I'm not going to call a woman a man, a woman. I'm not going to get injected. So those are the lines in the sands, the spiritual lines in the sand. And then I just want to give a quick example of what, Mike, you were saying about, and Monica. So I've got a backup for my computer. The power goes off sometimes. And then for the modem, I didn't have one. And so just a few weeks ago, I bought a small, what do you call it? Like the no break, the backup. So when the power goes out, the device can continue working for half hour, an hour. And I got it for the modem because when the power goes out, I still have internet and I still have my computer. So I can still podcast. And that morning, it was like a week ago, a few days after I got it, I plugged it in for the modem. I had Kees van der Pijl on, the Dutch political economist. And the power went out like it hadn't usually done for like 5, 10, 15 minutes. And lucky I bought that backup because I was still able to be there with Kees because I still had internet and computer while the power was out. But I was telling him, like, let's wait for the power to come back on because I've only got, 20, 30 minutes on the computer and it came back. But that was just a simple example of buying this small device that allowed me to continue working.
We had a device. I don't know if it was the same thing, but we didn't have internet after the fire, and my husband got a thing that I guess I don't know if it tapped into cell towers or what, but I had internet even though I didn't have internet, and it was just a little box. I mean, he gave it back to the person he borrowed it from, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to own it if your systems are going down. Because the wires were burned.
Looking on the bright side, this is pretty cool. Like, these times are actually making people take a little bit more interest in the things that actually we should all be interested in. Like, if we went back to our great-grandparents and said, in the future, we're going to allow the state to provide everything for us, the food, the water, the energy, they'd be like, are you insane? Remember, during the Great Depression, they literally had farmers burning their crops and saying, this is going to be good for the economy. So they caused these famines, they caused this hardship, but the right response is what you guys are doing. It's saying, okay, don't like the look of that. I'm going to just take a little bit more personal responsibility. And I think if we all did that, we'd all be much more free. You can't control people so easily if they're not 100% dependent on you. And, if we really took control of our food, water, and energy, then yeah, okay, the world would be a lot better for us. But I'm not expecting that to happen. But even if you've just got emergency supplies, I think you'll live through these times a little bit easier. You'll sleep better, especially when you hear about 50% of the world's fertilizer being impacted and food processing plants blowing up and all of this dystopian stuff. So, yeah. And also just one of our, a colleague, not someone I know, but Ice Age Farmer's been back recently with some, discussions on this stuff as well. So that was interesting. Like,
and
I feel like that guy was talking about this for a long time and now all of a sudden he's popped back up. So that's good.
Is he back in the saddle or is he writing poetry?
A new persona.
Yeah, it's a new persona because he disappeared. There was a music bit and then he came back and seems to, when he first came back, he was discussing like Jungian archetypes and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, this seems a bit new age now. But now he's gone back to discussing, the food crisis and the energy stuff. And that really is his wheelhouse. So, yeah.
Next, we have New World Next Week with James Corbett and James Evan Pilato.
Welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com.
And I am James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. Without revealing more than we can say right now, there is a very interesting angle. We have got that mysterious story, plus social media guilty in addiction case. But first, who publishes digital health wallet rollout? The World Health Organization, that's who. The WHO, its Alliance for Health Policy and Systems Research, and the Singapore-based Temasek Foundation have launched a 3-year program to replace paper health records across Southeast Asia with digital health wallets. The stated purpose is to give people portable, verified access to their medical information. But this is the same WHO that spent the COVID pandemic building a global censorship apparatus with, of course, their good buddies in Silicon Valley pushing vaccine passport systems that restricted citizens' freedom of movement and amplifying Chinese authorities while demanding the power to, of course, police everyone else's speech, like on this channel. The organization now wants to be trusted with the digital health records of hundreds of millions of people across ASEAN. James, do they pronounce it ASEAN, ASEAN? The Association of Southeast Asian Nations. I'm just going to say
I think they go with ASEAN, but whatever.
ASEAN. The program targets ASEAN member states, moving them from paper-based records like vaccination yellow cards, that's a World Cup dog whistle, and child health booklets to cryptographically verified digital wallets processed through WHO's Global Digital Health Certification Network, the terrible acronym of GDHCN. Countries will start with digital vaccination certificates. You got to start with the most important thing, then expand into routine immunization records, maternal and child health data, and eventually broader personal health summaries. You're difficult. Each phase widens the scope of what gets digitized, collected, and made verifiable across systems and borders, so it will increase exponentially as it grows. That system is now being repurposed and expanded well beyond its scope. Again, this is going to be for the COVID era, right? Into a permanent platform for digitizing all personal health information. Let's all place our bets now for when the story that says, oh, this has been hacked or you got leaked actually comes out. What started as emergency 9/11 pandemic infrastructure is becoming the default architecture for how governments manage their citizens' health data as if it is their business. During the pandemic, the WHO partnered with YouTube, Facebook, Wikipedia, and other platforms to censor or label COVID-19 content it deemed misinformation. YouTube alone deleted over 800,000 videos for contradicting the World Health Organization. Of course, also Corbett lost this YouTube channel. Many of those deletions targeted content that, turned out to be accurate, including claims about vaccinated people being able to transmit COVID and the possibility that the virus leaked from a laboratory. In related tax chattel news, cattle farmers say no to digital ID for cows. James, who will speak out for the human cows?
Yeah, that's the question. And it's not the WHO who will speak out. So exactly right. And when I saw these two stories cross my news wires at almost the exact same time, I thought, oh, there we go. We have to cover this precisely because it's the perfect metaphor. So yes, for the long story short, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is proposing some new amendments that will basically put digital identification system in place for cattle ranchers and whatever. And the Canadian Cattle Association is coming out and saying they don't agree with that form of tracking because it's going to be essentially a digital ID for cows. But what is the WHO proposing? Essentially a digital ID for the tax cattle. And it's exactly what we were saying during the scamdemic times, exactly at the time, as you say, this channel was removed from YouTube for 3 or 4 years or whatever it was, because we dared to call this scam out for what it is, essentially the digital tracking, surveillance, and control of the human population under the guise of health emergency, of course. But what it is the thin edge of the wedge of the digital ID, panopticon, central bank digital currency, et cetera, system. That's what this is all about. It is about tracking and tracing and surveilling every cattle in the tax cattle system. And that is what we are to these people who want to steward over the entire planet. Well, as it turns out, there is an alternative that is being proposed to the WHO tax cattle management system that is being proposed by a group that's been put together by the Brownstone Institute. I'll put a link to it in the show notes if people are interested to check it out. It's at least a different idea of envisioning a world that's based on human health sovereignty rather than on you are the tax cattle, we are going to ID you, and you better carry your ID around with you at all times. Papers, please, is not the way to manage the global human system, shall we say.
And as I've said, it's been tiring lately being right about everything we've talked about over the last 20 years. national IDs, worldwide blackmail, Epstein, Pizzagate. Oh, and I believe there was an early corporate report that said World War III will start in Iran. That is how we get going on this New World Next Week, episode 625. I was just telling James when we were off mic, 16 years ago today, we were taping New World Next Week, episode 25. And we've grown and we've expanded like a trillion gene universe, mapping the trillion gene universe, the startup that wants to teach AI the language of life. From Bio IT World, James and I find some weird things in this article. It's either not from a native English speaker or possibly a little bit of AI help. DeCamp Research, the AI biology lab, has announced the Trillion Gene Atlas, a plan to collect genomic data for more than 100 million species across 31 countries, expand the known genetic universe by a factor of 100, and compress what it estimates would be 20 years of data processing into under 2 years. Trillion is not a hypothetically large number, said Glenn Gowers, co-founder of DeCamp Research. The Trillion Gene Atlas is scaling up and extension of the company's existing proprietary database of all the nature that they own. Base data, introduced in June 2025, that already holds 10 billion genes drawn from 1 million newly discovered species, more than 10 times the size of all public genomic resources combined. The Trillion Gene Atlas is a plan to scale that by another factor of 100 in 2 phases of roughly 10 times each. Each scaling phase will take about a year, Gower said, including a stage of data gathering and generation and an assessment stage to incorporate learnings before the next scaling phase. We're scaling. Say scaling one more time. I double dare you, Mickey Ficky. Has that been a word of the year yet, James? Editing this article drove me insane. It says scaling about 100 times. We're scaling. The local scientists in 31 partner countries process samples on site, extracting DNA within an hour of collection to preserve its native state before shipping the stable DNA itself. PacBio is doing the sequencing at its facility in Menlo Park, blah, 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 blah. From there, of course, the good folks at Anthropic come in to help. And in January, DeCamp published Eden, because they like to name their satanic things after God's nature. A 28 billion parameter foundation model trained on the 10 billion gene version of base data, and the results of the Trillion Gene Atlas will be incorporated into new versions of Eden. James, we will include links to basecamp-research.com, the Trillion Gene Atlas. But what does the Svalbard Seed Vault have to say about all this, James?
Very perceptive question, James. And yes, for people who don't actually remember the Svalbard Seed Vault, they can check out my episode 489 on the secret of the Doomsday Seed Vault that's based on a biotech giants and digital and GMO Doomsday essay from Reportage Essays on the New World Order, which is all about that seed vault carved out of the icy tundra in the Arctic that is there to preserve the genetic history of the plant species of the world. And so they ship these genetic heirloom seeds off to this Doomsday Seed Vault that's been created out of the goodness and kindness of the heart of the Norwegian government and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and all the usual players in that system. Why? Well, maybe they know something about some sort of, I don't know, GMO doomsday that is coming for humanity and how we might need to repopulate the Earth at some point in the future. And similarly to that first story and the tax cattle story informing the WHO story, I think the Doomsday Seed Vault might inform this story. Because again, what is it about mapping out all of these genes and training AI on them? Well, they are experimenting with synthetic biology. And as I've talked about magic words before, you need the magic words to unlock the search engines so that you can find out more information about things. The magic words for this might be synthetic biology. Start looking that up. Of course, they are trying to figure out how to create completely synthetic life forms from scratch in the laboratory that have never existed in nature and never will unless we start unlocking the genome and figuring out how to put things together. And, well, that's a lot of work. So let's let the AI do it. What could go wrong? Well, anyway, unfortunately, we might see that in the near future if these genetic tinkerers get their way. But that's exactly why we might need some sort of GMO doomsday seed vault and maybe a sperm vault or something for preserving natural, authentic, organic substrate human species.
James, this was a alternative media conspiracy theorists. We've got our bugaboos. We've got our favorite topics. We've got our stories that we really have hit hard over the last couple of decades. The Svalbard Seed Vault was huge, I think, for indie media, alternative media. So what does it say when you're updating any kind of software? Hey, make sure you back everything up in case this completely ruins your life. That's why they're doing this. They're psychopaths and sociopaths, but I don't think they're stupid. They do know that they are unleashing unstoppable chimeras, and just like in the experiments, down here in the Southwest 100 years ago, it's possible we might start an explosion that destroys the whole planet, or what they're doing at CERN. We might open up a Stargate that eats the whole galaxy. So they're doing these backups to make sure, hey, in case we wreck everything, in case all of these transgenic monstrosities that we let go on purpose, that places like the late not great Monsanto could sue you for having blown into your farmland, they're making a backup. We do have some relateds that go all along with this, designing AI programmable therapeutics with the Eden family of foundation models, and of course, Anthropic, the most disruptive company in the world. James, I was making my notes earlier about how the synthoids, that Cobra Commander made. And in important old world last week news, we always try and be 20 minutes into the future, but sometimes stories get past us, and I think this is important enough to take a glance at. Meta and YouTube found negligent in landmark social media addiction case. Grabbing this from the New York Times, so you know this is big news. The social media company Meta, which of course owns Instagram, Facebook, all that, and the video streaming service YouTube, which is owned of course by Alphabet, harmed a young user with design features that were addictive and led her to mental health distress, a jury found in a landmark decision that could open social media companies to tons more lawsuits over users' well-being. Meta must pay $4.2 million in combined compensatory and punitive damages, and YouTube must pay $1.8 million. This bellwether case, which was brought by a now 20-year-old woman identified as KGM, had accused social media companies of creating products as addictive as cigarettes or digital casinos, because she's not old enough to have actually gone to a real casino. Citing features like infinite scroll and algorithmic recommendations, KGM sued Meta, which, as I said, owns Instagram and Facebook, and Google's YouTube, claiming they led to anxiety and depression. And then the psych meds they got put on, only gave him more suicidal ideation. The verdict in KGM's case, one of thousands of lawsuits filed by teenagers, school districts, and state attorneys general against Meta, YouTube, TikTok, Snap, and which, of course, a major win for the plaintiffs. The finding validates a novel legal theory, meaning, damn, we never tried this before, that social media sites or apps can cause personal injury. It is likely to factor into similar cases expected to go to trial this year, which could expose the internet giants to further financial damages and force changes to their products. I guess the parents were probably too busy on their own slave phones to help. And again, this is one of my bugaboos. This is a 20-year-old adult. To me, these are the same types that kill the Reiners and the Menendez parents. And so tech has actually been sued so much the last few months, it is actually hard to keep track. Meta settles, search, Meta settles, $1.4 billion biometric settlement, $190 million shareholder settlement, $50 million California privacy settlement, and $8 billion shareholder trial resolution. None of these settlements involve direct, dirty, gross cash payouts to individual users. The funds generally go to state governments, the company itself, or cover legal and compliance costs. Middleman says thank you. Meta consistently states that it does not admit wrongdoing in these agreements, settling instead for the sake of resolution. So it means nothing but making it rain for states and lawyersteins. California and Texas, I don't think, are real ideals for freedom either. And the good news, I can now sue all those car companies for killing a bunch of my friends. Search, Google settles. March 2026. You have to be that specific. In March 2026, Google settled multiple high-profile legal and regulatory issues. Android privacy for $135 million. Google Assistant privacy for $68 million. The Epic Games antitrust, and also search privacy. I covered this a lot on my Tuesday morning show. Meta, Google lose U.S. case over social media harm to kids. God, James, next you'll tell me they were forced to learn how to tell time.
I'm just impressed at privacy. Pretty soon you're going to be talking about rows between people and talking about aluminium.
I don't even have my Morrissey shirt on.
You could be an honorary Brit. So yeah, the social media addiction verdict here, clearly, what does it mean? $6 million is not even a drop in the bucket for these kinds of gigantic behemoths, but it does open the door for the class action lawsuits that, hey, ka-ching, ka-ching, mostly for the lawyers and, for big companies as well. So I suppose there could be down the line something actually approaching a real monetary punishment here, but that's not the point. What is the point of this? I think it was best expressed in a recent Off Guardian article on Quick Take, the social media addiction verdict, in which it says, consider just how many countries around the world have either introduced social media bans or are considering introducing them. It is now a matter of official record that social media companies are responsible for harming children, not inattentive parents, not any other factor. It's the companies. And that means social media bans and the universal digital ID / age verification measures required to enforce them are suddenly a moral duty to protect teenagers. They're a public health measure. And we know how much state overreach people will permit in the name of public health. So we expect California proposed social media restrictions to fly through the legislature on the back of this verdict, and other states will absolutely follow, and it's unlikely to be limited to state level. Yes, this is what this is about. It's opening the door for the government to get what it wants, or the people controlling the strings of government, which is the digital ID age verification structure. The age verification structure, which is the thin edge of the wedge, the way to introduce the digital ID architecture. It all keeps going back to the same thing, doesn't it? It's almost like there is an agenda, and they're just using absolutely every single tactic in the book to push that agenda. Well, anyway, make of that what you will, everyone.
These poor kids are the same ones they give puberty blockers and a bunch of MAGA jabs to. So, boo-hoo for them. And I've made this comparison a million times. It is like the tobacco industry, which we already mentioned early in this episode. They run the exploitation and pimp it as much as they can and make as much trillions out of it as they can until it all runs out. And then they flip a switch and they run the prohibition, which is what they have done to cigarettes here in the States. I'm not saying good or bad, but you pretty much have to be 21 years old now to smoke a cigarette, and you may as well walk down the street with 3 heads and be a complete weirdo. The flip side of that is, of course, bad economic times. You will generally see an upswing in cigarette smoking because it's an appetite suppressant, among lots of other things. But it is the opposite now of what they've done with marijuana. They lord it over, again, the prohibition as much as they can until they get to flip the switch. And, oh, man, there's weed stores everywhere. All you got to do is give them your state ID, and they don't take cash. Interesting parallel, I think, James, with these cases. Same time, same timeline, and really, to me, it's in a lot of similar ways. The Live Nation Ticketmaster trials. Long story short, the company that runs all the concerts, Live Nation, is the same company that sells all the tickets to all their concerts, Ticketmaster. It's kind of the reason why they broke up the studio system 100 years ago, because Paramount owned the movies and the theaters where they showed those movies. States continue antitrust case against Live Nation Ticketmaster after the DOJ settles. So much, very much interesting going on under the sun, and that's why we try and bring it to you here on New World Next Week. I saw a comment on last week's show from somebody in high school. I'm rocking my Fayetteville Pirates baseball hoodie right now. I just found the Corbett Report a couple months ago when I saw James Corbett on a podcast. I found it on Spotify and started an episode on the way to work. I heard James Evan Pilato introduce himself, and I was like, holy ish, I went to school with that guy. It's great to see someone from my small hometown doing actual journalism, searching for truth, and poking the ruling class in the eye. Great content. Thanks, guys. Man. Now, what's funny, James, and this may shed a little more light, I have replied twice, breaking my long-standing I never comment on New World Next Week videos. The only other time I ever commented was to say, James is alive, he's okay, he was not killed in Fukushima. I have replied twice, and each time I've gone back to check and see if it's there, my comment isn't there. So I'll say it right here. Dude, email me, james@MediaMonarchy.com. And there was another comment last week that asked, is that other guy on drugs? I'm only on a little LSD. love of successful determination. NewWorldNextWeek.com for logo tees and USBs, P.O. Box for memberships and donations, and this exclusive audio on Monarchy Radio Thursday mornings. James, that is New World Next Week 625 in the can, buddy.
I love successful determination too, James. So let's all share a little LSD.
That's all.
In this happy episode of New World Next Week. Anyway.
Oh, good grief. There it is, dude.
Good grief. All right. Well, thank you for that. And deprogramming note, we will not be around next week. So there will be a New World Next Week in 2 weeks. And everyone can stay on the edge of their seat for that. But in the meantime, in between time, thank you for doing what you do, James. Keep at it.
Thanks so much, buddy. You too. Take care.
Fuck this shit. I'm just gonna dance now. Fuck this shit. 'Cause we don't have a chance now. The whole world is fucking gone to hell. Makes me wanna fucking scream and yell. Fuck this shit. I'm just gonna dance now. Fuck this shit. 'Cause we don't have a chance now.
Guys, all rock. Thank you for being here and hanging out and being a part of the show. We do love the hell out of you, and we can't do the damn thing without you. It's a value for value gig here. If you're new here, you're kind of, just getting into the thing. This is how the show works. Every time you see not only AM Wake Up, but every other show that airs on the channels, all of that content comes to you for free. Nothing is ever going to be put behind a paywall. There's no subscribe to this to get that. You don't have to learn a secret handshake. We get $0 from advertisers. We get $0 from paid sponsors. That's why you don't hear 10 or 12 minutes of ad reads and shit at the beginning of the show or throughout it, because it doesn't exist in this environment. Instead, if you guys see value in what we're doing, you like the conversations, you like the guests, you like the jokes, whatever it is. If you see value in that, send it this way, and that's how we get to do the thing. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can participate. There's a couple of things that we definitely need to see from you guys. Most importantly, time, talent, and treasure. Time and talent, because it's just me doing all of the things 7 days a week in order to make sure that you guys see this stuff and I participate and hit the fucking like button. It's not going to break your wrist. I promise. On the talent end, if you make clips, please do that and get them out there. I don't care if 3 people are going to see it. If you tag us, we'll retweet it too, and then 3 more people are going to see it. The way that we're buried in the algorithm. But it helps. Every little bit helps. Exact same philosophy applies to the treasure part. Every little bit helps. If you're at all in a position to contribute to independent media, all of the direct donate links, including Bitcoin, are in the description. So if you have, 55 Bitcoin and you want to give the show 1, it's going to get dispersed to at least 5 other content creators that day.
Kind of a fucking ass clown wouldn't have the heart and compassion to donate to baby Steve.
Now, let's take a look at some highlights from AM Wake Up from this week. Make sure to support and share their show to keep this great channel going. Share the show. Share the show. Share the show.
Share the fucking show.
Here, let me just do this. Let me play a clip from the JFK film, which is to me the most important scene in the entire film that is never followed up on. It's never again revisited by Stone or DiEugenio in this context. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and share screen. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch this clip.
Sure.
You have no volume, Corey.
No volume. The volume's up on my side. What do I got to do to change that?
Let's see. When you shit, I don't know. Check StreamYard to see if it says that it's connected to the sound, I guess, because StreamYard's a cunt.
Yep, it says also share tab audio.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
You remember me, Mr. Garrison? I bet you on
Okay.
that street right after your election. I congratulated you.
How could I forget? You make quite a first impression. And I've heard over the years you're quite a first-rate pilot, Dave.
Really?
Yeah, legend has it you can get in and out of any field, no matter how small.
Huh.
I'm a bit of a pilot myself. Flew grasshoppers for the field artillery in the war. Yeah, have a seat. Make yourself comfortable.
Mind if I smoke, Mr. Garrison?
How could I? Dave, as you know, President Kennedy was assassinated on Friday. A man named Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested as a suspect and was then murdered yesterday by a man named Jack Ruby. We've heard reports that Oswald spent the summer here in New Orleans, and we've been advised that you knew Oswald pretty well.
I never met anybody named Oswald. Anybody told you that has to be crazy.
But you are aware he served in your Civil Air Patrol unit when he was a teenager.
No, if he did, I don't remember him. I mean, there were lots of boys in and out, you know.
Well, I'm sure you've seen this. Perhaps you knew this man under another name.
No, I never saw him before in my life.
Well, that must have been mistaken information we got then. Thanks for straightening it out for us. There's one other matter that's come up, Dave. We were told that you took a trip to Texas shortly after the assassination on Friday.
Yeah, now that's true. I drove to Houston.
What was so appealing about Houston?
I hadn't been there ice skating in many years, and I was with a couple of young friends, and we decided we wanted to go ice skating.
Dave, may I ask why the urge to go ice skating in Texas happened to strike you during one of the most violent thunderstorms in recent memory?
Spur of the moment thing. Storm wasn't that bad.
I see. Where did you drive?
We went to Houston, and Saturday night drove to Galveston, stayed over there.
And then Sunday?
In the morning, we went goose hunting.
You bag any geese on this trip?
I believe the boys got a couple.
But the boys told us they didn't get any.
Come to think of it, they're right. We got out there where the geese were, and there were thousands of them all over the place. But you couldn't approach them. Well, why is a bunch of birds?
Your young friends also told us you had no weapons in the car, Dave. Isn't it a bit difficult to hunt for geese without a shotgun?
Oh. Yes, I remember now. I'm sorry, Mr. Garrison. I got confused. We got out near the geese, and only then did we realize we had forgotten our shotguns. Stupid, right? So, of course, we didn't get any geese.
I see, Dave. Well, thank you for your time. I'm sorry that this has to end inconveniently for you, but I'm going to have to detain you for further questioning by the FBI.
Why? What's wrong?
Dave, I find your story simply not believable.
Really? What part?
All right. So they highlighted in this film that David Ferry is obviously lying. And they never followed this up. This is the most important scene in the whole film because this is what happened. David Ferry was in Dallas. And how do we know he was in Dallas? 2 days before the assassination, he was in Fort Worth. And how do we know this? Because of the Jack Martin phone call. The Jack Martin phone call on November 22nd. Jack hates David Ferry. If you understand the relationship between these two men, he hated him because he knew he was a pedophile and he was forced to work with him. He didn't like that at all.
Right.
He's an alcoholic.
That's
the day of the assassination, he's pissed. He picks up the phone and he calls the FBI and he tells them exactly what he knows. And how does he know what he knows? Well, this we can go back to the Thomas Beckham HSCA testimony, where he attended the meeting with Vincent Marcello and Anna Berglass and Jack Martin and David Ferry and a bunch of other guys. They gave him a package to run to Mr. Howard in Dallas at the Executive Inn. That's Lawrence Howard, who I place as the shooter in the sniper's nest. And so we have all these little pieces of the puzzle that all fit together. And when it comes to David Ferry, it's obvious everyone knew he was lying. And so when you go through my full presentation on Ferry and the Winterland and the Knoll, takes about 3 hours. But when you really come to understand that material, you come to understand that David Ferry, you have to kind of reverse engineer everything from the end. And you go to, and I'll show them right here. I've got a couple statements here. We got a couple statements here from David Ferry. Let me see if I can run to them real quick. I have a bunch of stuff on the Winterland Ice Arena that no one's ever figured out before, run by the CIA, owned by Lyndon Johnson. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. So we get this notice in the Garrison files that David Ferry hid the night of the assassination out in a dorm room in Hammond, Louisiana. Now, where's he supposed to be? He's supposed to be at the Alamo Motel, where they arrived about 4 o'clock in the morning. They never arrived there because he never went there. David Ferry was not on this trip. So you get to the statements of Thomas Compton. Thomas Compton knew David Ferry going back to the Civil Air Patrol days. And for some reason, all these kids who David Ferry molested in the Civil Air Patrol, they all seemed to hang around him and maintain a friendship with him over the years. Maybe because of his hypnotism. I don't really know why they would do that. But Compton provides this statement.
Well, that would
he
not
says
be,
that,
hang on real quick. One thing, that would not be atypical of victims. Sometimes they do continue to persist in a relationship with their victimizer. That, you should know, statistically is not an anomaly. David Ferry lying about everything, you're dead on correct. But yeah, I'm still hoping that we're going to get to exactly how we place him there, because
absolutely.
one of my questions is that he does not appear in the photographic record to the best of my knowledge. And I've been
We'll get to
over
that.
about 40
We'll
films.
definitely get to that.
Okay, good. Because I've been over 40 films in Dealey Plaza that I do consider to be recordings of a contemporaneous time period where he would have had to have appeared in some of them, and also hundreds and hundreds, I don't even know how many hundreds of photographs, where I should be able to find him somewhere, and he would
Yes, we
stand
do.
out. So I'm,
We do.
asking the question. Oh, you have that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. Well, I'm waiting on that. But him being a liar is absolutely certain. As a matter of fact, even in unrelated cases, not just in this one, whenever he had been questioned, he always provided convoluted answers, lied about the official record, lied about being parts of organizations he was part of, lied about his involvement with the church, where he was also, molesting boys, much younger boys then at that point. And this guy's a pedophile of massive proportions, which nobody ever wants to mention.
Correct.
And he was clearly dangerous in that way, but he was also tied to the intelligence community in very strange ancillary ways. And indeed, he has mafia connections. This guy is connected to everything greasy possible.
Yes.
So
he's the center of this universe. He is like he's the center of this relationship universe. So here we go. Thomas Compton. They talked to Thomas Compton, who was a Civil Air Patrol guy, obviously providing cover. He says Mr. Compton continued to state that on Sunday after the assassination at 5:30 a.m., he's awakened by Dave Ferry in his dormitory bed at the University of Southeastern in Hammond. Mr. Compton stated that until this day, he's uncertain how Dave Ferry located him. That's a lie, and we'll get to that. At this time, Dave Ferry was in hysterics and near tears as he stated, "The police are at my home and they've taken some of my things." That's actually a poor mistelling by Compton, because that didn't happen until after midnight on Monday, not on Sunday at 5:30. And so he says the next important thing is here that he returned to New Orleans in a Ford Falcon station wagon painted light blue. That becomes very important because they're doing car swaps, because the other group of people who are seen in David Ferry's Mercury Comet is Sergio Arcacha and the two boys. And here he's got the Ford Falcon. So it's two different cars using the same license plate at two different places, the Alamo Motel and the Driftwood. This document right here. This is a statement from Frank J. Chilona. I credit this as being the single most important document in all of Kennedy research. This is Thomas Compton's roommate. He says, in the fall of '63, my roommate was Thomas Compton. We were residing at Holloway Smith Hall, Southeastern Louisiana College. I think on approximately November 22nd or 23rd, he told me that a friend of his would be staying in our room. So that debunks the notion that Thomas Compton didn't know how David Ferry found him. It was planned. And he said that this person was to be where many people could see him. I was told his name was Dave. I don't remember for certain whether I was ever told his last name. I was told he was a psychologist. On the 23rd of November in the afternoon, or perhaps the evening, I went to my room and found the man sleeping in my roommate's bed. His back was to me, so I couldn't see his face at the time. I noticed, however, that he was sleeping fully clothed and with his hat on. At this time, I also noticed that his hair was very strange looking. I believe I was introduced to him later on in the evening, but I don't remember the nature of the introduction or what was said, except that not much was said at all. I asked my roommate about this man, in particular about his hair. I was told that he was bald and that he had pasted theatrical hair at the point where his hat met his head. I'm not certain that he spent the entire night in the room or that he even spent more than a few hours in the early evening. The next time I saw him was Sunday morning. It's actually Monday, in the lobby of the dormitory, and it was very crowded as everyone was watching the funeral on television. Long story short, this is Saturday. This is Saturday the 23rd, and he's sleeping in a dorm room in Hammond, Louisiana in the afternoon. Where's David Ferry supposed to be that Saturday afternoon? He's supposed to be
if he's watching the funeral. Yeah, just really quickly, if he's watching the funeral, that's obviously Monday. That's when it was broadcast.
Right. And
also,
we already know that David Ferry spent the night. He spent Sunday into Monday night there because that's the official story, and that's basically what was true.
Right. Now, hang on just real quick. Just pause for a second. I want to ask Steve a question because Corey's doing a very good job here of taking apart certain things and proving part of his case. But here's the question I have for you, Steve. I don't think you're an expert on the assassination or wouldn't even approach claiming to be one. Is that right, Steve?
That is correct.
Okay.
I've Corey and I have had like extensive conversations about several aspects of this. I've had, extensive conversations with other JFK research type individuals. But it's not like my personal area of expertise. So,
right.
Yeah.
I'm
here to learn.
I have a follow-up for you. Cool. I have a follow-up for you, though. Are you absorbing this and understanding the point that he's trying to make? Because that was the topic of conversation that was advertised on that panel show we were supposed to show up on. And the thing is, at this point, we lose most interested parties. Even though you and I understand this, Corey, and you're making great points, and you're even skipping over some of the obvious ones that are right there that should be picked up on by the listener. Like I said, if we know the broadcast was on Monday, even J.D. Tippett's funeral was broadcast on Monday, so they can't have a confusion about a live funeral on television. It's not happening except for J.
So here,
right?
I can follow because was it a year ago, Corey?
Yeah,
that we did the massive presentation, but that was after a couple of lead ups to that. And this is something that, again, like I've been doing, a show in one capacity or another for 8 years now, something like that, going into 9. And, I've had a lot of conversations about this and heard a lot of people, and seen a lot of presentations over the years, so I can follow along. And it's fucking fascinating. Like these guys are fucking with me about this is my like day off or something like that. No, dude, like I'm glued in.
So this is one of the problems is that like the average person on the street, they lose interest way before we get to this. Right. And so, for me, it's more important to get other people who understand the Kennedy assassination to understand this, because if they can't understand it, it's never going to get to the people on the street who don't understand anything. Right. So, but I can't concern myself with that. I can't worry about that. If you want to get to the truth, you got to go through the weeds. And this is the weeds right here.
No, I understand where you're coming from. It's just that when I try and present this stuff, I'm trying to learn something here, because I try and present this stuff and the majority of people will trail off.
Yes,
and
100%.
That leaves us in a bad position, though. We need both things to happen here. We need the uninterested parties to become interested simultaneous with educating others about this stuff. And so far, look, you're pleading an excellent case as far as, look, Ferry was lying. He clearly was somewhere else. Garrison investigated. This is the part of the Garrison investigation before it got hijacked. Okay, where he was conducting this just basically because he's got a criminal he clearly knows who he is, making weird statements and doing weird things at a time when there were major events going on. And that's all there is to it there from the Garrison investigation perspective. And this is why this is significant. Yes, indeed, Ferry lied. And I want to see how it is you actually place him there. That's the thing I'm anxiously awaiting. So, I mean, and I'm not saying this to contradict you or to fight with you.
Right.
I'm
totally
pointing
cool.
out.
Totally fine.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So Ferry's actual timeline, when you actually come to grips with everything that happened, he's in Fort Worth 2 days before the assassination for Jack Martin. He's then in Dallas on the 22nd, where he participated as a shooter of Kennedy and at the Tippit shooting. Then Ferry hid out that night, 11/22, as per the Garrison memo, Chelona then sees him sleeping in the bed the next day when he's supposed to be at the Winterland, but he's not. The whole Winterland is a big cover story. The Winterland was founded by a woman named Mary Boots Roberts, who was close friends with Lyndon Johnson. The Johnson family enterprise owned the Winterland. Not only that, Mary Boots Roberts had a first cousin. Her birth name was Caltagirone. Her first cousin is Vincent Caltagirone Jr., who was actually married to Jack Valenti's sister and is also the real Raoul, who James Earl Ray identified in the Martin Luther King assassination. But that's a whole nother story. So Chelona sees Ferry sleeping on Saturday when he's not supposed to be there. Then that Saturday, after he gets up out of bed, he will drive down to Galveston and check the boys in Arcacha, who was impersonating Ferry at the Winterland. We'll check them into the Driftwood Motel. He'll then drive back to Hammond when he gets back. It's about Sunday, 5:30 in the morning, as per Compton's statement. Chelona then puts Ferry in Hammond that morning, the day of Kennedy's funeral, and then Ferry's in New Orleans meeting with Garrison on 11/25. So that is the series of events that David Ferry did. Let me see. Before we get to all this stuff, I have another video we'll play real quick. So this is the series of events that puts David Ferry at the actual grassy knoll. And we'll start off with the video clip from The Men Who Killed Kennedy with Ed Hoffman. Now, people have some differing views on Ed Hoffman's statement, but one thing I need to emphasize is that when you have a witness, if you're a cop and you're investigating a case and you have a witness and he provides you details that they don't understand the significance of, you can tell that that person is telling the truth, or otherwise they wouldn't know those significant details that have no meaning to them. If a cop goes to a robbery at a 7-Eleven and the guy left in a red Mustang, and then a week later he works another robbery and the guy left in a red Mustang, it's the same guy, okay? That's how cops think. It's very simple. It's not all complicated. You don't need tire forensics or 10 witnesses. It's the same guy. And that kind of point gets lost on a lot of people. But let's listen to the statements of Ed Hoffman, and that will be the starting point that we're going to jump off from. Let me see.
And yeah, Chuck, while he's pulling shit up, if you want to, hop in or add or anything like that, man,
Okay. Well, Hoffman is a highly controversial figure because his story did, in fact, change once he started doing presentations.
Right.
And once he started doing presentations, then it really changed. And quite frankly, I would even argue that maybe he wasn't quite as deaf as he said he was, or as advertised, because of certain things I saw him do. And I'm the blind guy, remember? I'm legally blind, but I could still tell when somebody can hear with their back turned. You know what I'm saying? So, there's a lot to be said about Ed. He's gone now. We can't ask him questions. But I would say that, and usually as a cop, somebody would agree with me, that a statement taken much closer to the event is usually more valid, because the memory is not a recording device and is subject to revision and addition. And whether it doesn't matter what the motive is, by the way, no matter what, you will not include all of the details the longer you go. They may be changed or influenced by the questioner, indeed. And things like this have occurred. So that's why it's difficult to work with a witness like Ed Hoffman, because you have the barrier of he was disabled. I mean, that's true, but the severity may be advertised differently than it actually existed. But also his story started to alter because he was being asked questions and he was being led for quite a while once he was discovered. And The Men Who Killed Kennedy is an interesting example of a lot of information that can now be invalidated in the entire series because of this influence over time. You want to see an incredible influence over time. Witness Gerald Custer is your best example. And he's a guy who was taking x-rays as a tech, on the body of JFK. And his story is almost useless at this point because of all of the revisions that have occurred over the years. Ed, though, you have to be very careful. And I would say, I hope that you're sticking to the information that he gave much earlier on, because I would find it to be much more valid as far as what he was seeing. Also, one of the people that tried to invalidate his statements made a mistake, because the fence is not currently in the position it was in 1963. So, a lot of people look at it now and say, okay, this is physically impossible or that. Yeah, that's because you need to look at the surveyor's layout and the real physical position of certain things that was in Dealey Plaza. It's very close to the historical reality, but it is not exact.
Right. So the thing with Ed Hoffman is he provided
pitch
two pieces. He provided two pieces of information, and that's all I care about. He provided information that the man was wearing a black hat with a wide felt band and a blue jacket. That's it. That's all that matters, because we have four more witnesses who provide that same general description of the man at the knoll, behind the knoll, and at the tippet shooting. So let me go ahead and play this.
However, his story is confirmed by another eyewitness, Ed Hoffman, a deaf mute who is interviewed here for the first time.
I'd gotten off work early because I had a dentist's appointment. I was traveling down the freeway here, and I remembered that President Kennedy was coming to visit Dallas. I parked my car here. I realized at this spot that I would be able to see Kennedy pass close by. I stood here and waited, and I was looking towards where he would be coming from. I suddenly saw two men who looked suspicious directly over there in the car park.
25 years ago, these trees did not obscure the view. From his position at the side of the freeway, Ed Hoffman could clearly see the car park area behind the grassy knoll.
I saw a man standing here, wearing a black hat and a blue jacket. I saw a puff of smoke, and I thought it was a cigarette, but it wasn't. He had a gun, and he walked towards the railroad. He tossed the gun to the second man. Then he turned and straightened his jacket, adjusted his hat, and walked casually away.
All right, that's all we need to see from there. And from there, let me go ahead.
Where's the wide band? Where's the band on the hat part? Because I didn't hear that in his description there. And this, by the way, just for reference, was recorded sometime around the 25th anniversary of the assassination, in probably in 87 or 88, when Nigel Turner actually came to America to interview people the first time. Just letting people know when it was recorded. And 25 years after the event. And they say he's being interviewed there for the first time. And I think that might be accurate. Go ahead.
All right, Steve, go ahead and bring the next one up. All right, so this is the description that Ed Hoffman gives. This is a photograph of him on the set of the JFK film. And this is the description of the man. You have the black hat with the band on it, and you have a man wearing a suit. Now, if the man he saw is David Ferry, then a man wearing that exact same outfit is captured in the pergola right here. But even better, we have this photograph right here of David Ferry walking through the railroad yards. This photograph would have been taken exactly between the time Ed Hoffman saw him. Here we go. We're in the same hat. And David Ferry only owned one suit. When you read the testimony or the statements made by brochures indicated that Ferry only owned one suit. And this is probably it, with the same hat right there. And then from here, what happens next? What's the next bit of data that we have that would link David Ferry to this? Let me stop sharing this. I have one last video we'll play. The audio I used, and I made the video on top of this audio. So,
is that a still from one of the moving films that you got there of the car park, or is that a still?
No, that is a still.
Who's the photographer?
That I don't know. I'll have to dig it up. It's in my notes somewhere.
Okay. I just want to dig up my own copy of it to look at it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sure. I can send you a copy of it also. So then we have this. Oh, I think I did this one wrong. Share screen, window, audio on. All right, here we go. And this is a woman who was sitting. This is Velma, a phone call into Coast to Coast in 2006, talking about her, what she saw from the day of the assassination.
Let's go to our final caller with you, Alex. First time caller. Hi there.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I am Velma, and I live 100 miles from Dallas. I was living in Dallas at the time, and I had my car parked behind that Texas Depository Book Building.
Yes, sir.
I saw the shooter came out, and he had a very high-powered rifle. It was no bolt action, and
Well, now, let me ask you, please, because that rifle that they said Oswald used to kill Kennedy was apparently left upstairs.
It
so
was.
You're saying you saw someone else come out with a high-powered rifle. Okay, tell me what happened then.
Okay, I'm sitting in my car, and there's a gray dove-colored old one-seated Plymouth car sitting there, and there's a man with a felt hat on with a wide band, and he had on a suit, and he had black hair and real heavy eyebrows, and he'd look at me kind of dirty. Well, about that time, a police car come and told this man to move, and he didn't move right away, and the police got out of his car, and I know later it was Tippett. And he told him, he said, I said move that car. Well, then this man that's in this old gray car, he went straight on around and went around this big building that was across the street from me. Tippett went the other way, so they must have met back there.
Did you say this to the Warren Commission, ma'am, or anybody else?
I haven't told anybody because I didn't want. I had 4 children I was having support then, and I didn't want to get shot. And I saw the man, and I could tell you how.
All right, so we have 2 witnesses who place a man very similarly described wearing a hat and wearing a suit. One from Ed Hoffman, one at Velma behind the book depository, and a photograph of David Ferry between the 2. Now, that's only 2 witnesses.
But she is facing, well, hang on a second, because this witness have you identified who this person actually is? Because it's just a call into Coast to Coast. And I've heard Coast to Coast callers say things like, they broadcast the assassination. I saw the Zapruder film live, which is impossible. Because it just simply formatting issues, they couldn't have run the Zapruder film live. No camera was present in Dealey Plaza that we know of. And she's saying that Tippett met him right there. I got a little problem with that, considering I study on Tippett where he is at that particular moment in time and everything else according to the radio broadcast from the police. So
those are wrong.
I'm not saying... Okay.
Tippett was standing on Houston. Tippett was standing on Houston Street, and he's captured in the Robert Hughes film. Yes, Tippett's on Houston Street, which when she says that, it basically confirms that it was him standing on Houston Street. From there, he will go meet David Ferry, and then they go meet around the other side of the building. And now this makes perfect sense to me, because after they go and meet on the other side of the building, they will head over. Tippett will head over to the Gloco station, where he'll sit and wait for that person to get off the bus, and then David Ferry will be parked. When you get to the Tippett shooting, you'll find that gray Plymouth, which will end up being owned by Carl Mather, is parked behind Tippett's cruiser and facing the opposite direction. We then have this is why Velma's statements are completely valid. There's 3 additional witnesses at the Tippett shooting. Okay, the 3 witnesses who matter at the Tippett shooting are Akila Clemens, Frank Wright, and Doris Holan. All 3 will see a second man wearing basically a blue jacket and a hat just like this. So you have a total of 5 witnesses who all basically see a general description of the exact same man. The 2 scenes are linked by the gray Plymouth, which Velma here saw in the parking lot behind the book depository, and then will be seen by multiple witnesses at the Tippett shooting. Then what do we have?
So you don't, so where do you factor in the phone call from the record store that Tippett made?
Okay, so what appears to have happened is Tippett will go to the Gloco station. He waits there at least 10 minutes. There's 5 witnesses who see him waiting at the Gloco station. The bus that Lee Harvey Oswald allegedly was going to be on, but that was a whole setup. No one ever got on that bus. When the bus comes and goes, no one gets off the bus, and he panics because he's either supposed to meet somebody, arrest somebody, shoot somebody, whatever. He's supposed to intercept somebody getting off of that bus. Never happens. He panics. He goes to the Gloco station. He goes to the Top 10 record store. Frank Cortinas is in there. He witnesses Tippett pick up the phone, make a phone call. It rings 7 or 8 times based on the amount of time he's standing there. He rushes out. He then goes and pulls over the vehicle with Andrews in it, right? The insurance guy. He cuts him off. He goes and looks in the back seat. There's nothing there. He's panicking. He's looking for somebody. When he doesn't find the person he's looking for, he goes to a prearranged meeting spot, which is at 10th and Patton, right where he's told to go. And how do we know he's told to go there? We're told, he's told to go there because David Ferry is already waiting for him in the gray Plymouth. That's the man in the blue jacket seen by Doris Holland after Tippit gets shot. Those three witnesses I mentioned all see two men there. They all see two men. One they say is taller, but that's just because it was Kerry Thornley, the man who actually was the Oswald impersonator who shot Tippit the first time. David Ferry comes up, delivers one shot to the head. He then signals to Kerry Thornley to go. Kerry Thornley will then flee to the secondhand junk shop on Jefferson Street. He tries to go up the stairs. He tries to get in the back door. He can't get in the back door. This is seen by a Dorothea Dean at Dean's Dairy Way. And this is where we run into an issue with the jacket that was disposed of, because Dorothea Dean, who owns Dean's Dairy Way, she says she saw the guy go up. He tried to get in the door, couldn't. He took his jacket off and he threw it on a tire rack. She went and received the jacket from the tire rack and gave it to the cops later on. So there's some jacket shenanigans going on. But from there, David Ferry will get in the gray Plymouth. He will then, I suspect, I can't prove this, but we have, when the cops get to the house on Belmont up in Fort Worth where Kenneth Glenn Wilson gets arrested, the one that's connected to David Wayne House, they mention that there's a light-colored Ford Falcon in the driveway, okay? It's the only other mention of the light-colored Ford Falcon, which David Ferry will inevitably end up driving to Hammond, Louisiana, where he's seen and identified by Thomas Compton. So this entire series of events, and how do I link Kerry Thornley to this? And how do I link David Ferry to the larger plot because of the Tippit shooting? This all goes back to the Perry Russo party. This is like the most important thing that you can imagine. The Perry Russo series of events is so important because what do you have? You've got Kerry Thornley, Kerry Thornley was the Oswald impersonator who went down to Mexico City. And now, how do we know this? Because he made two previous trips to Mexico City, one in May when he left New Orleans on his way to California, which isn't exactly on the way, and then once on the way back where he gets back September 4th into New Orleans. So then you will have Perry Russo see this man who is identified as David Ferry's roommate, but he's described as a bearded neck, right? He took the picture of Oswald and drew the beard on him and goes, that's him, right? So and when you come to understand Kerry Thornley's role in Oswald's life going all the way back to the Marines, you come to realize there's a whole lot more going on here between Thornley and Oswald than anyone's ever talked about ever. And so you have this whole confluence of events and the Perry Russo party. What do you have? You have David Ferry, angry, pacing back and forth. He's got the stack of newspaper clippings wrapped in a rubber band. He's just going off on Kennedy. He then starts talking about triangulation of crossfire, how you're going to have a dummy shot and somebody's going to have to take the fall while the other assassins get away. He starts describing things straight out of Dealey Plaza, right? So as a former law enforcement officer, when you look at the totality of circumstances here, it's brutally obvious David Ferry was at the center of this thing. He lied about where he was on the 23rd because he didn't go to the Winterland. And why wouldn't he go to the Winterland? Because that was an alibi story meant to cover for the stuff he was doing in Dallas. This is all fluid. It all makes perfect sense. It explains why he lied about everything. Right. So that's basically my take on that. And see, here's another thing. When you get into like the shooter at the Daltex, Emilio Santana, you get into the three shooters at the book depository. You're talking Lawrence Howard, who is basically clearly identified by Arnold Rowland, who sees possibly a Negro, but he's a little lighter skinned and he had something marked on his face. His face was wrinkled or marked in some kind of way. Well, who could that be? Lawrence Howard, the only guy in the whole story who's a husky Latino with a pockmarked face, right? And if Lawrence Howard's up there, this is where it gets into the study of the relationships. Once you understand the relationships that Lawrence Howard engaged in, you'll know the other guys in the building were Lauren Hall. And this is where everyone totally dogs on me. I'm telling you with 100% certainty, Oswald was not present at the book depository November 22nd. The man everyone was identifying as Oswald was William Seymour. William Seymour was one of the two men impersonating Oswald all the hell over the place. And so study all of the different Oswald appearances in various places like the Sportsdrome Rifle Range or the Carousel Club or the Havana Bar or a half a dozen other places. You come to find two distinct patterns.
Can I ask you a question then? Right on that. Just right on that, because previously I'm letting a lot of problematic witnesses go by. Okay. And I'm just trying to roll with you. But I got a little problem with him not being present at the book depository that day, considering there were people that knew him well enough up close that it would have been very hard in my mind to pass off any sort of impersonator on. And I'm talking about common people who didn't want any part of anything. Not just people like Harold Norman, but our friend who drove him to the book depository, who's now changing his story quite a bit.
Right.
You know who I'm talking about there.
Yep.
And others who encountered him that day. Nobody says that there was anything off about him. I mean, you're talking about such a perfect body double here in order to make that work. Yeah,
I'm talking about someone who was the person who worked at the book depository was introduced as Oswald and had worked there for weeks.
So you're saying it never was Oswald. So you're saying it never was Oswald at the book depository.
Correct. And so a lot of the stories about interacting with Oswald completely fall apart. Like the Coke story on the second floor, that never happened. That's a myth. They created that myth for a very complicated reason because Baker. So I have to explain the Baker and Truly incident because it's a total lie. So the shots happen, all this stuff. Baker runs off his motorcycle. He doesn't run off his motorcycle into the book depository. He runs past the book depository because he saw somebody run north on Houston Street. When you pull the Willis 10 photo, you'll clearly see they're arresting a man dressed all in black. And this completely corresponds with him seeing the man, because when you look at Baker's statements on what he saw, he's like, I pulled into Dealey Plaza and I knew the shots came from that building. So I got off my motorcycle and ran to it. That's a complete lie. When you look at where he actually was, he was blocks away from it when the shots happened. There's no way he heard anything. So that whole statement is BS. Then he makes an arrest of who I believe was Emilio Santana. And if you dig into the documents, you'll find there was about 15 people arrested in Dealey Plaza that day. One of them went on to become known as the second suspect. If you read a lot of the newspaper articles, you'll find that Decker arrested somebody and held him for 3 weeks, trying to get some kind of charges on him and eventually had to let him go. I believe that man was Emilio Santana, arrested from the Daltex because he wasn't inside the building. He was shooting from underneath the fire escape in a near parallel fashion with the limousine. So he gets arrested. And then you have the statements of Robert McNeil. Okay. So Robert McNeil is this guy's not a spook. I don't know what to say about it, but this guy,
the NBC guy who was working, you're talking about the NBC guy who was working with other spooks at NBC for sure.
Right.
Which, by the way, I did, just for the record, I interviewed the police officer you were just talking about myself. But go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So Baker enters the building, and they go up and they do all this stuff. And by the time Baker and Truly get down from going up to the top floors, the place is flooded with cops. There's a bunch of people coming in the building. The problem here, Robert McNeil goes and makes a phone call to his New York news desk. That phone call was timestamped at 12:36 p.m. He leaves the building, and there's only 3 people in that building. 3 men on the first floor who he said were exceedingly calm for the pandemonium going on around them. Those 3 men, Billy Lovelady, William Shelley, who killed the power of the building and then turned it back on. And then you have Buell Frazier. Okay, so those 3 guys are still in the building at 12:36. No one else is in that building. So that statement is completely contradicted by the statements of Baker and Truly, who say the building was flooded with cops when they got back down. So that means that, and McNeil said that he didn't believe any cops had entered the building before him or until he left. So what does that mean? It means that the incident out front of the book depository where they made an arrest obviously had to shift the time frame. So according to Robert McNeil, no cops entered the building before 12:36, which to me makes perfect sense, because these guys enter, they press the button for the elevator, and it wasn't that the power was off at this time; that it was hung up on a higher floor, and they didn't want to wait for it, so they go up the stairs to the top floor.
The door was open.
Which door? Oh, the door to the elevator.
The elevator door. If you didn't close the gate, it couldn't go down. That's why it was stuck. Go ahead.
So they end up going up the stairs. And what happens, and I have 3 documents that prove this, they encounter a man between the 3rd and 4th floor who in one of the documents is identified as Oswald. And this man is clearly not Oswald. He's wearing a light brown jacket. And that's how we know it's not Oswald. Oswald had to leave to go get his jacket, remember? So this man is stopped between the 3rd and 4th floor. The time now is approximately 12:38, 12:39 that they're stopping this individual. Truly identifies him as an employee, and they let him go. So what does this sound like? This sounds like the Coke story that never happened, okay? This is on 3 documents. And so from there, the man continues down the steps, exits the building at exactly 12:40. Runs down the hill, and this is where you have him getting into the Green Nash Rambler that then heads to Oak Cliff, right? This is perfect timing. because if we know that the incident didn't happen 90 seconds after with the coke, that's a complete fabrication to cover for the fact they made an arrest, and that the actual story happened at 12:38 or 12:39 on the stairs, then basically we have a perfect interlude between the man getting stopped and the man leaving out the side of the book depository and leaving in the green Nash Rambler. Now, who owned the green Nash Rambler? Well, thanks to John Armstrong, we have the registration records for that green Nash Rambler, and it comes back to Lawrence Howard. Also, witnesses testified to the green Nash Rambler being owned by Lawrence Howard at the HSCA. And so Howard and Seymour are a pair.
Yeah, quick question about this going up the steps and the story about Baker and drawing the gun on him on the second floor and all that. Real quick question: how do you account for the other witnesses that claim to have seen Baker making that ascent as well, and truly going with him, or at least a cop at that time? Is it a different cop, or are they just simply misconstruing the amount of time that was elapsed between the event and what are we looking at there?
That's what I would say. If people saw his ascent, it was definitely not 90 seconds after the assassination. It couldn't have been, because as they're making the ascent, they stopped the man between the third and fourth floor. This is in Baker's handwritten statement. It's in his typed sworn statement, and it is in a document from Chief Curry that he released to the radio stations, I think, or the news companies.
Going in on Maha, because it's been such a blatant fraud, and there's like so many different things that you can pull from, and Derek Bros has done an excellent job writing about this and publishing it in TLAV. Tons of articles we can pull from there.
Right.
So I hit 7 up and was like, hey man, would you be into it? He's like, oh, I've been offline for a while. I kind of like not having to deal with any of you assholes and playing video games, and it's way more fun than hanging out with you pricks. And I was like, please. And he goes, oh, because you asked nicely, I'll do that. So back on the show, consummate researcher, an excellent human being, 7 C's. How you doing, my friend? Good to see you. Welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me. It's good to see you guys. I have been away for a while, just kind of like focusing on different things. A lot of homesteading stuff.
Nice. Heck yeah.
Yeah. Been I actually just recently like decoupled from my smartphone.
Nice.
And that's been really, really nice as well. Other than that, man, just like focusing, like prioritizing stuff at home. It all starts at the homestead, and just kind of like doing some renovating and things like that, getting stuff back in order. And like you said, just kind of, I mean, everyone needs like that mental break, right? Like you need to find a balance. If you like live in this stuff all day, every day, and you don't find like a reason to exist outside of it, it's like, what are you even here for? What are you doing? So kind of took some time to do that as well, but I'm ready to get in the swing of things, man. I'm ready to call this stuff out. I've been trying to keep up, and man, it's a whirlwind of propaganda.
And if you don't do what you're talking about, if you don't find your I guess off time or something else, if you don't think about it, you'll just kind of spin out one day. I've worked with so many people that have the best of intentions that just and care so much that they throw everything into it and they just break down, and it's like anybody will get there. I mean, I keep talking about the same thing. I'm like, get out there, touch grass, break away. Like, actually, that's why I've sort of kind of reorganized my schedule. At first, I was like hell bent, like I was not going to set I don't really have a set time, but even try to set the days, because I feel like it then like forces you to a schedule, and then you have to adhere to that based on whatever. But I've switched into it now because I feel like I've got to try to break away. I've got to try to give it that gap where I can like literally, like you're saying, like not just like I used to take a day, but I'd be on my phone half the time looking anyway. It's like, put it in the thing, turn it off, which is so fucking hard to do, especially right now, with so much going on, but it's so necessary, man. I'm glad to hear that.
Absolutely. Thanks, man.
What are you doing on the homestead style?
So we're kind of like setting everything up to get a garden going and stuff like that. And I'm laying down some like stones for pathways and stuff to be able to walk through, and doing some like general landscaping stuff.
Sweet.
It's good that you have done that, because as everyone who has a Marmot calendar knows, it was last March 20th, the 20th, where you have a note that says, start planting your garden, dummy.
Yep.
Yeah. So little friendly reminder from the Marmot.
We're a good point right now, I think, in Tennessee. At least, I'm sure it might be different depending on what side you're on. But I think that right now is a good time to start. I was dangerously going along the edge of the last frost. We planted some lettuce, and we were able to, it just basically froze again. Like not long ago, we had to cover it and everything. But it's just so important, man. And like even whether it's just like the survival aspect, just having something to put yourself out, your outlet. Get out there and just forget about it. It's so necessary.
Absolutely, yeah. Because like one of their main goals is like to dominate your time. So if like all you're thinking about all the time is like Peter Thiel and what he's up to, and you're not like investing in your friends and family and things like that, you're falling right into the trap.
Well, I think a lot of people are primed for that, and a lot of people are primed to just be glad that somebody else is thinking about it all the time. Because, man, if Candace is on the job, then I'm okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. If she's out there cracking the codes, then we can just go about our daily lives, and she'll solve the problem for us. And I think that's a huge part of what the trap of the mainstream alternative media is.
Trust the plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the other thing to it too, is like they make it so convoluted and have like all these different connections and stuff that it would like seriously take somebody a full lifetime just to map everything out, and then a year from now they could have a whole new slew of like shell companies and funding and different things like that. So it really is like a life's work, and if they're able to get you to just dedicate all your time to that, not to like building stuff and networking, communicating, and setting up like your own foundations and stuff. I mean, it kind of like spins you in circles, not really knowing what to do.
Yeah, when Teese was putting together like one of his earlier short films about the independent media, he had all of us do like this 10 to 15 minute thing. And I think he used about 30 seconds of everybody's. But the thing that he left in for mine was like trying to get it through to people that you, singular individual, aren't allowed to take the weight of the world on your shoulders and feel like you're solely responsible for solving all of these problems. You're going to go fucking nuts. Yeah. Don't feel like you have to do that. Yes, it does look like nobody else is lifting a fucking finger. A lot of the time it does. But that's not true, A. And then B, you and you alone are never going to be able to take on the entirety of the world's problems and singularly solve them. You definitely need help for that. So please don't think that you have to. And that was basically the gist of it. But like Ryan was saying, I mean, we both, worked with and have seen a bunch of people come through the space that do have the best of intentions, that are really good at what they do, and just burn out and spin out super hot because of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I have kind of like felt that way a little bit, where it's like, man, I've sat here and I feel like I've mapped out everything, and like you throw it out there and you're like, you just don't understand how people can't see it. And at the end of the day, you're not going to get everybody. Most of the people, I feel like it's that bias, that confirmation bias, the dissonance and stuff it's working overtime, man. And even seeing people like getting courted back into like Tucker Carlson and Candace, like Tucker Carlson and the Joe Kent interview that I watched, and everyone thinking that this guy from the CIA talking to this other guy in the CIA is somehow going to be great because he said Israel bad. So
exactly. Well, and that was the early thing. I think all three of us were like, well, I'm glad that he's calling this out, but there's some skepticism here, right? Like, doesn't this feel like an easy, low hanging sort of Trump had to do what he did? I think that's exactly where it kind of went, right? And but I think more interestingly though, with the what was it? Oh, I just lost it. There was something else on there. Well, just the Joe Kent thing was so. You see, Whitney also made a statement about that, and she got in with Jimmy, and it's just interesting how the kind of pushback on that. Oh, it was about Tucker, about the same kind of thing. Like he's saying, like saying things that align with what generally I think are good to call out, but a little bit late on the bus. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, good thing Vance is going in because we can trust him. It's like, for fuck's sake, man. Like it's like, come on. Like, how could you even fucking say that right now after all the things he's been caught lying about, even just recently? I mean, so at that point alone, for you two, like a question. Do you think that that's genuinely Tucker? I'm sure I think I know what you're going to answer, but do you think does he really think that? Or is he just like lying wholesale for the agenda, or is it somewhere in between? I just think it's crazy.
Oh yeah, as far as Tucker goes, I mean, you know, I look at like everything he's sort of connected to, and his entire media company is funded like in part by Peter Thiel and Rebecca Mercer through 1789 Capital, which Don Jr. is actually part of and an investor of as well. So it's like anything, you know, that's going to be like pro-Trump administration or the bait and switch that JD Vance is. You know, it's no surprise that he would be paid by Peter Thiel or funded in part by Peter Thiel, and then push the Peter Thiel candidate. So
right.
I'm certainly not accusing him of anything. I'm just saying that if you were to look at the background of somebody like Tucker Carlson, probably determined that he was a spook. He does sound like a psychotic Mickey Mouse. Huh?
Who was that?
Tucker. He sounds like a psychotic fucking Mickey Mouse. Yeah. He does, dude. Just, I mean,
he does that laugh, dude.
Right? Right?
But you know, but the same as always. It's like, you know, it's take it like it's as long as we are questioning every source, every piece of information while considering all of it. You know, it doesn't really matter truly. It all matters, but it doesn't at the end of the day when it comes to, you know, it's all data. You know, if Tucker says it, maybe the truth, maybe what he said is true, but you don't take it because he said it. Don't, you know what I mean? It's like, don't blindly accept it rather because he said it, question it. But then the very next thing he says, apply the same steps all over again. 1, 2, 3, repeat. You know, it's like the same dynamic. And I just think that's lost on so many people. It's like you get like a piece of information, and we all have it. People that watch us, that we know we can trust them, you know. And as much as I know I'm acting from honesty, I could still be wrong, you know. It's like we just have to do that, and then it wouldn't matter anymore, truly, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of the misappropriated hopium into Maha stems from too.
Right.
Exactly. And I mean, look, you know, I had a co-host on this show who left the show to go on RFK Jr. tour. It was rapidly disillusioned as a result of that. But I mean, I think it was plainly obvious to us what was happening with, you know, the buildup to Maha and Bobby being a part of the Trump administration, and saw all of the reporting too that he was simultaneously trying to get himself a job in a potential Harris administration, and was just, you know, basically playing an active spoiler candidate in order to position himself inside whatever incoming administration happened to get selected. And that to me was, you know, gross enough to add it with the Israel stuff and add it with, you know, the there's something about Mary stuff. Where did you maybe Erica Kirk, your ex-wife? Is that, you know, like, were you Erica Kirk back in the 90s, Bobby? I don't know. Can't. It is odd that he would be the one to discover his ex-wife, you know, after she also Clinton style hung herself in the barn of the house that he moved across the street to, so that she could watch him and Cheryl every day leave to get, you know, like just weird shit, dude. Weird, manipulative, head fucky, you know, typical Kennedy shit. The reality that the current guy who walks around calling himself the president of the United States is, in fact, a raging, frequent, pants shitting goon.
Yeah, but that comes from like the interview with The Apprentice that you've shown so many times that we don't need to show it again.
No. There several moments recently, even in the White House, that were caught both on camera and then by reaction to the people that were like, you could actually hear like a, you know. But in one case, and he was standing right next, or there was like a woman standing right next to him, and the look on her face was priceless. And then there was another one where he like literally cleared the room, and people were, you know, making the face, but trying to not make the face. Yeah.
I just want to say to any listeners who might, you know, need to wear adult diapers, we love you. We're not trying to make light of the situation that we're in. We're more just using this as a reflection of how many times this motherfucker had to get pegged by the devil in order to be able to be riding the Biff Tannen that he is at this point.
Yeah, I would assume that if you're watching the show And also wearing adult diapers. It's not because Roy Cohn wore you out in your 20s and 30s, and that's why you have to do it.
And for that matter, if you enjoy getting pegged, we're not trying to make fun of getting pegged. We're just trying to get a lot of different, like, fuck Donald Trump things together because he's a puppet and it doesn't matter. And it's getting increasingly uncomfortable to notice that the emperor has no clothes while he's going full volcanic diarrhea on everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. This is merely verbal, but also terrible.
It was very necessary.
Yeah. A couple of questions for you on Ron, but first one affects Americans here at home. Gas prices. Today they hit $4.
And we're $4, yeah, and we have a country that's not going to be throwing a nuclear weapon at us in 6 months.
But Americans are feeling the effects in the interim.
And they're also feeling a lot safer.
What is the plan to bring them back down?
All I have to do is leave Iran, and we'll be doing that very soon. And they'll become tumbling down. And stock prices were up today almost to a record.
Yeah, that didn't happen. But with Americans don't mind paying what, $9.50 for diesel. No, it's okay because we all feel so much safer now that President fucking Depends has thrown the world into rapid technocratic dystopia acceleration phase. Yeah, we feel great, Donnie. We do. That's good looking out.
Can we get like a, not crowdfunded because it's not about money, but just like people who are actually willing to start installing those like water car things and just try and get that up and running in a decentralized way? Because that'd solve a lot of people's problems if they actually just got behind it in a constructive and coordinated way, you know?
Yeah.
Because this is an engineered like crisis. Like if you look in even Philip Zahan, yeah, or is it Peter Zahan? I don't remember. But
I think it's Peter.
Yeah, Peter. Okay. Like I have 3 of his books. They go into fracking, the infrastructure of the United States, and something like only 10% of the oil is actually foreign. It's primarily an energy exporter. So this is an entirely contrived thing as it relates to the North American technate. And so it's one of those things where, I mean, we've shown the map. This is just a controlled implosion in order to move us out of the degree to which we have been post Bretton Woods presiding over the security of the international order. So they need to make that feel like everything is perilous and they are going to hit you in your wallet and everything. But if at a certain point enough people just throw up their hands and say, fuck this, let's actually create solutions ourselves, and that could be a catalyst for a major pivot in a major way. So that's what I'm saying. Like that kind of thing counts for a lot.
Yeah. I'm the whole reason you were in Tennessee last year is because it was me and Ryan's co-birthday thing. I didn't realize that you hadn't put it together, that was, foolish about it.
I don't think I was there on April 1st. I thought it was like April 3rd or 4th or something.
That might have been. I think we hung out at, I don't know, I can't remember what day it was that we hung out at Ryan's house either. I'm not sure. Anyway.
Okay, well, anyway, I'm editing another, because I'm putting out those interviews every few days, which actually take some time to do, but whatever. I've got basically a year's worth of footage, and fuck it, I'm including a lot more of that so people can kind of like just have a more robust behind the scenes glimpse of the individuals who I was able to spend time with. So I'm editing one on Ryan right now, and I'll try and have that up in a few days. And I might be co-hosting Grand Theft World on Sunday. I'll try and show some of that there. But as far as like, are you guys doing something in the next few days this go around, or?
We were trying to put something together for this month, but the way that air travel is currently, it doesn't look like it's gonna happen, and it was probably gonna be close to like $3,000 up front to get out there and lodged for a couple of days.
Why can't you just sleep on Ryan's like gigantic open faced studio thing?
I mean, technically, probably, but I don't necessarily want to impose like that. And I don't. Girl doesn't really like sleeping on the floor.
Whatever. I guess this
Yeah.
is something. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. But yeah. No, it's a steep order. No matter what, like the cheapest possible routes, still a very fucking tall order. And yeah, we would have to like appeal directly to Ryan's audience for that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting time to pontificate on the structure of a decentralized alternative media that is not able to gain traction relative to the fake alternative media because of how decentralized we are. It's very interesting.
Well, and most of us don't exist in the ecosystem where the people are, which is YouTube.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm on there, but it's like nobody knows, and you can't get attention because like people view the legitimacy of you as the number of views and subscribers that you have, which is ass backwards, but that's the reality of what we live in. So yeah.
So somebody go lay $800 down and bought the hell out of all of Deese's views so you can get them.
No, I don't want that.
I'm kidding.
No, I know. It's just like it's so sad that we're like that, but I get it. It's I don't know.
Oh, and yeah, no, I'll sleep on the floor. That's not the issue.
You can just have her sleep on you.
Right? Still not the same.
All right. I mean, I slept on the floor in the airport when I flew in, so whatever.
Right?
I'm not like, that's a decision I made. It's like I'm not paying for a fucking hotel. Fuck this shit.
Yeah.
The only reason that then I was able to sleep in Scott's couch cushions in his living room, which was great. That was epic. Because otherwise I would have been terrified about my gear getting wet the entire fucking weekend. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone who endured the weather and weathered the storm and bonded in the process. You're all wonderful people. We love you.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if we were still traveling. Well, I think we might have been. Last year at this time. Yeah, I think I was driving out of Oklahoma, like through torrential downpour, very gnarly conditions. And my girl and my kid were just passed out, fucking asleep, which I was grateful for because I didn't want the stress of them being awake and aware of what was going on. But yeah, that was hectic, man. That was fun. I mean, yeah, all said and done.
Yeah, for everyone who didn't get stuck like trying to get their car out of a giant mud pool for like hours on end with other people doing the same, I'm sure it was a delightful time. For everyone who had to endure that, we love you. Once again, see it as like bonding through adversity.
Right? I'm sitting there listening to Choctaw Bingo, driving right by Lake Eufaula. That's good shit. Hit the Tennessee Jed right when we crossed the Cumberland River, I think, or Mississippi River. That's what it was. Yeah.
So
nobody cares about the video of Kash Patel dancing, Hamza. I'm sorry. And for the 875th time, if you drop something in Telegram, it doesn't play volume through StreamYard. But no, I could give 18 fucking separate ghost shits about Kash Patel. If it even is him, it's him doing something on his own time in private, and it's not hurting a kid or anything like that. I don't give a fuck. I don't.
Uncle Slayton's got his Texan pride, back in the thickets with his Asian bride. He's got an Airstream trailer and a Holstein cow. Still makes whiskey cause he still knows how. He plays that Choctaw bingo every Friday night. You know he had to leave Texas, but he won't say why. He owns a quarter section up at Lake Eufaula. Caught a great big old blue cat on a drifting jug light. Sells his hardwood timber to the chipping mill. Cooks that crystal meth because the shine don't sell. He cooks that crystal meth because the shine don't sell. You know he likes that money, he don't mind the smell.